1, 2, 3. There we go. There's the audio. Bloody hell. Nearly messed it up there. Had the whole thing set up and then just forgot to plug in the bloody microphone at the last second. Because I have a really big microphone that's here in front of me that I use for the Sunday service. And I forgot to plug it in. So that wasn't smart, was it now? But we're here now. Like and share. Thank you very much for joining in to the Sunday service. It's lovely to have you aboard. Everybody settling in. No sound. No, sorry, Jimmy. That's the preparation that goes into the show. It's just really, I had everything set. I was sitting here going, yeah, that's sure. Definitely have absolutely everything sorted apart from the audio, which is the most important part because then you can't hear anything. But now I hope you can hear everything and everything's running according to plan. Yeah, and you look, God, it's awful hard to get everything ready in one go. But welcome to the Sunday service. It is. It has landed. We are here. We are ready to go. It is storm central outside. I can hear the wind go. We're going by the window here, and I'm in the middle of the country, so it's not too bad here. It's just pretty windy. The coastline of the country, the lads on Cork and Waterford and everywhere in between those two places, is getting a little bit hammered out. As is the coastline of the UK, and I see some of you up in Edinburgh there getting murdered over it altogether. Indeed.com is a website I use quite a bit. We can have a little gander at the at what's happening out there right now. There is our wind chart. We'll cut over to that. I hope this works. If this works, it'd be genius. This is like you know, this would be like what you call it. It's not going to work, is it? Yeah, window should work there. No, that's not what I'm looking for. That's not what I'm looking for. Discard that. Scene. No, I can't make it work now today for some reason. Don't know why. We used to be able to make the window come up on top of us all the time. It was easy, and that seems to have gone again. Scene. Talking about yourself for a second. I'll be back in a second. But anyway, we'll continue on. We'll get back at that as the time goes on. But today is a terrible bloody day wind-wise. It is coming in on the west coast of Ireland and sweeping its way off up towards the north. Very cold wind. Coming in across Swansea and London as well, across the bottom half of England. And then we're being hammered out in Scotland, of course. Where else will we have anything but Scotland being hopped off the whole time? It has been a wet and wild week, actually. We've had so much stuff going on. All the week. It's been absolutely weird how much stuff is after happening. There's another trip coming up next week. I'm going over to Nice to test the DS9. Tomorrow I'm swapping into, I have 2 electric cars next week. I have the Mustang Mach-E, which I'm quite looking forward to, and the Skoda Enyaq Sportline, which is another one I'm looking forward to, and of course Skoda Enyaq Coupe will be out later on in the year. So lots of electric cars on the way, loads of them, which is pretty cool. We say hello to a few people who are here already. There's GC05355. You need new username there, boy. Hi from a dreary Drogheda. Drogheda is looking fairly miserable up there. It's just windy here. There's Anthony as well from windy, stormy, wet. Liverpool has dropped in. Jimmy Penrose is here as well. A horrible day it is, Jimmy. It's an awful bloody day. Graham Cull is here as well from Edinburgh, which is getting blown apart. Trees are bending well. More and more people are complaining about poor MPG from E10 and Mazda's form I'm part of. Not surprised. E10 is, I know what it. If you change the chemical makeup of anything, it changes the responses of everything around it. So if you change the amount of chemicals you're going to put into petrol or diesel or any of these things, it changes the combustion chambers. It changes how things combust. If you change how it combusts, you change compression. If you change compression, you change horsepower. You also change everything. The dynamics of the car entirely will be changed fairly constantly as well, which is a bit of a pain in the ass because no matter which way you put it, you're going to see a change, a complete change in how things behave within the car as well. We're going to fade over and have a look at our weather. That's our weather chart at the moment. It's from windy.com. If you ever want to see good, clear weather charts, that's pretty much what we're looking at right now. It's the wind forces that are happening around the world. I just put it in play mode, which will bring us what the changes are going to be over the next few hours. So that's into Sunday for the rest of the day. Then into Monday, we're going to see more wind coming down on top of the northern half of the country, heading further over towards the late afternoon on Monday evening, and into Tuesday morning when my flight takes off. which is when I'm going to be flying out, which is just as well, really. It's always nice when you get to fly out. That's called windy.com, if you ever see it. Not a weather forecaster, it's more of a wind predictor. I used to see it quite a lot in some of the sailing channels that I follow, which is quite nice. Great old channels up there as well. There's Eric Rochford in the house. Good to see Eric Rochford here. That came up on the screen. It did. It's very good. Don't forget to like and share is exactly what you need to do. Thank you very much, Eric, for reminding me of that. I always forget that myself. Like and share. 51 of you here at the moment, which is very good to have that many people here. Please like and share and comment. Ask questions. Do whatever you want to do. This is a place to hang out and talk about cars and taxes. And we're going to get to the cars and taxes as we go along. There's Rob as well. Hi, Rob. What did I just open there? I didn't open that by mistake. Should be opening something else entirely. This York. Rob is here as well, and Automotive L3 is here as well. Good to have you aboard. Robert Mulhall has come in. Thank you. Tom Breen, you're very good to have you aboard. Mick Mulcahy, thank you as well. I have to say a special thanks as well this morning to a couple of people who put they support the channel, and I can't find out where it is. I had some donations this morning. And they're gone. I thought they were there somewhere. Anyway, it's gone off the thing now. I'll come back tomorrow. But some people donated this morning. Thank you very much for the donations on to PayPal and Patreon and places like that, which is very good to have you aboard. It supports the channel, keeps it free, keeps everybody free. Hobbs Roddy's here as well from very windy, rainy South Wales. We're looking on the map there. Wales is getting panned over again. Paid $1.83 per litre for petrol, said Brian O'Donnell. It's gone mad. I was looking at a TikTok this morning from a trucker who paid $1.70 for diesel into his truck. And $1.70 for filling his tank was €1,232 of fuel went into his truck. Now, that in itself sounds like a lot to us. It's a big fuel tank. Okay, it's a large fuel tank. But where that's going to take place for us is inflation. It's happening already. Everything is getting more expensive. But you wait and see as prices of food start to rise in a fast fashion as well. We've already got minimum pricing for alcohol now, very similar to Scotland. But you're going to find that we're going to have more prices going up across the board for everything, because everything is transported in this country by truck, essentially. Irish Rail are nearly useless when it comes to making transport runs with trains only. So almost everything comes by truck, by road in this country, and if you're going to have trucks on the road, they're going to need fuel, and if their prices of toll bridges went up, the prices of fuel is going up, the taxes are there, the carbon tax are there, all that stuff is not going to just be paid by the trucking company. They're going to pass on some of that onto the end user. So the people they're delivering to, the price of a tank of fuel has gone up, so the price of a pallet goes up. If the price of the pallet goes up, then the price is passed on to the end user. You and me and everyone else in the country who are citizens, right-minded citizens, are going to pay an awful lot more for our food, for our basic necessities on a daily basis. We've already got minimum pricing alcohol, which has driven up the price of a pint in the pub. It's driven up the price of absolutely everything. It is getting, like, to a point now, it is getting pretty serious for some people. There are people out there I see reported in the paper. They might be extreme cases, but they're choosing between heating the home and having their dinner. And that's pretty much what it's coming down to. People are looking to find other ways out, but carbon tax has made every other fuel expensive. My gas bill doubled since last year, at least doubled. We actually used less gas than last year, and we were paying twice as much now. It's not cheap anymore. There's Rob in Cornwall. Good to have you, Rob. Exclusive Auto Club has joined. That's a very exclusive looking BMW in your tag there. Jimmy says, I wonder, did anyone with an Ioniq 5 or EV6 have a power cut because of the storms, and how did powering the house from the car work out? I wonder that myself. It would be really handy to be able to do that these days, isn't it? I was chatting with a person online who has left the boating community and taken up residence in a little house in Panama. And their house is in a mangrove. So it's not connected to anything on the outside world. So everything comes from rainwater and the rest comes from solar. Now I know it's Panama, but Panama is subject to massive storms and lots of grey sky. And they've managed to get around with good cleanliness of solar panels, and they feed into standard old-fashioned big lead acid batteries. That's all they run their entire household on. They do get more daylight than we do for most part of the year, as Panama's kind of it's it's nearer the equator than we would be, but they were subject to quite a bit of storms, and that'd be the thing of it. And they seem to be able to manage out there. Now, don't know how we'd feel today, whether we get any solar panels or not, but solar panels here are still really expensive in this country. Although I did see the other day online, this guy had a rollout solar panel. You buy a roll of the cells, and they kind of unroll. You can buy them in like a tube, like a map tube. And you can put them in yourself. Now, they won't stand up against much weather, but you can put them inside a glass case. Be kind of nice, wouldn't it? But it'd be nice to know if anyone in Ioniq 5 or the EV6 who can send electricity the other way has done it. Just walked into shop in Tralee and nearly got blown away with the weather. Really is incredibly windy out there, like really gusty wind. This is the day where you look up and you see a trampoline pass by, and it's that kind of day. As it is pounding across the shores here in Ireland, pretty heavy at the moment. If I flick back to windy, you'll see what I'm talking about. That's what we're looking at right now. You can see the wind is coming in. So if I pull back out a little bit, you can see it's coming in from over here onto the sort of west coast edge of America. It's been pulled outwards that way. And of course, the ever circular wind that is in the Atlantic, this just circulates around here the whole time, is being pushed back up and then across here, picking up a bit of stream from the north and then pulling back in over the top of UK and Ireland at the moment. But it will push back out towards France and United Kingdom, and it is going to get pretty serious over the next few days. So take care when you're out and about. Watch for blowing down trees, for God's sake. That's the real danger. Coming around a corner, 100 kilometers an hour, 80 kilometers an hour, and there's a tree in the middle of the road, you just can't stop. Watch for mudslides and stuff as well when you're in that kind of region. I still remember driving around a corner in Spain one time, and as I came around, there was this boulder just sitting in the middle of the lane. I mean, just sitting there, massive yoke. Fortunately, got stopped just in time and drove around it, but we called the emergency service, who were there in minutes to card it off, because it was a fairly regular thing. But this thing just looked like it was just placed there, just no damage to the road. It looks like it just rolled out onto the road. Crazy. North Wales is wet and wild. That sounds like that sounds like a good thing, Rob. You're making it sound like something we want to do. Wet and wild in North Wales. I like it. Robert Mulhall, just want to say hi again from nice and warm Madrid. Robert, to some degree, we hate you. And in other ways, we admire you, because you're gone to a place which is getting out of the way of that wind. And if you look down, of course, Madrid there would be, it's nice and just a light little breeze in Madrid. We can actually see it on the map there. Hang on, flick over. There is Madrid, right there in the dead centre of that. I'm pointing out at the moment. You can see where Madrid is, and there is no wind in Madrid. It's over here, over towards Marseille. There is a little bit of wind. I will be in Nice on Tuesday or Wednesday this week, if we make it out of the wind. Takeoff. I've seen some takeoffs in the last few days, and they look a little bit worrying when you see them taking off. Hellhound says, a bit bluster here in Yorkshire. Nearly had to put a big coat on. I know, it's not cold though, is it? Same here. It's very windy, but it's not cold. Mad rise in fuel prices last week. Yeah, well, if you actually start looking around at... I was supposed to have this window open. I had it open in a closet thing. So when you look around at there's a website called Macro Trends that I use quite a bit. So if I fade over to it, you see what I'm talking about. This is Macro Trends. What Macro Trends allows us to do is to have a look at historical fuel prices. Yeah. So you can see here at the bottom of the chart is the years that we've had fuel prices for. So there's 2020, which is a couple of years ago now, but we're actually up to date here. This date here is January 2022 is the latest date. So 88.15 was the price of a barrel of oil in January 2022. So, but yet the petrol at the pump is now upwards of 180, 190, yeah? We had that same price back here in July 2018, 76. We had much lower prices here in November 2015. We even had a much higher price way off back here in 2008 of $165 a barrel. But simply because of tax in this country, because of the way that we tax the fuel here, we've driven the price of the actual fuel at the pumps way up, between carbon tax, various kind of taxes that have been pushed onto fuel over the last few budgets, and it continues to rise. But the actual price of a crude oil hasn't done a whole lot movement in the last little while. And if I flick back to that chart for a second, I'll show you what I'm talking about. So here it is, today's price, yeah. And then last July 2021, it was 76. So it's gone up by $10 since last July. Yeah. But we had an all-time low back here of 22.30 in March 2020. Did we see that at the pumps? You'd have to ask, wouldn't you? And like I say, all I want to do is ask questions here. I want to get people thinking about stuff, about the price of crude oil. Look, it was lower here than it was way back here in 1946. So it went up massively in that price. But there's the big jump actually there. So 1973, when the fuel shortage went up to 58.01 a barrel. But we are being ripped off. We are being ripped off, and people have to decide now whether they're going to drive to work. I've had a few people who I don't know whether to take seriously or not, but you have to report these things where they've come on and gone, I'm getting rid of the car and I'm going to try and work from home from now on because it's just not worth driving to work. Crazy money, really. So I need a drink there. Brian Cassie, hi Bob and gang, got my Zappi e-charger installed last week for a Q5 PHEV. It's working our 6 cent per kilometre on electric versus 15 cent per kilometre on petrol. That is a good saving, Brian, in fairness to you. I have a PHEV this week as well. I have the Lexus NX, which is a PHEV. And the first time ever I got the range from the PHEV part that they said I'd get. Normally, you get in like the Jaguar F-Pace. You get in and plug it in, full charge, says 40 kilometres on top. 5 kilometres later, it says you got 10 kilometres left. It just eats it. But the Lexus is actually doing really well, so it's quite nice. Plus, you're future-proofed yourself there as well, Brian. You have a Zappi e-charger, which means if you change over to a full BEV car, you just use the same charger. Nothing's going to change for you. You only have to buy it the once. So it is a big save, and of course, with electricity prices even rising, it's still surprisingly good bit cheaper than petrol or diesel at the pumps. And in the PHEV, we had a guy on a couple of weeks ago who was telling us he did 1,600 kilometres to a tank of petrol because he charged the PHEV every day. Carson is here from Bahrain. Bloody hell, Carson. Rubbing our nose in it now. We're coming to the desert instead. Johnny Dub is here. Go on, Johnny Dub. Good to see the same old names slowly come back to the new channel. It's deadly to see, and I can see the little subscribers just starting to creep up as people realise where the Sunday service is going. So spread the word. We had to pull out onto another channel because it was seriously affecting the watch time on my ordinary channel. Because if you put up a 10-minute video and then you put up a 2-hour video, it just doesn't work out for YouTube algorithms. Just don't work out. So here I'm getting massive watch time here because people are staying around for most of the 2-hour program. So it's become like that. I'll be on a few radio shows over the bank holiday of Midlands 103. Just music shows in the evening time. We're going to do a sort of a bank holiday roundup thing on Midlands 103. Be pretty good. Enjoy me there on FM. You can actually stream that one as well, but that's a proper radio station thing. We might even do a live while we're there for the crack, right? And I'm also at the Ideal Home show again this year. I talked there last time that I was on. It hasn't been on a couple of years. It did an autumn one, but did very restricted numbers. The numbers have gone up now massively. So if you want to come along to the Ideal Home show, I will actually be giving a talk about electric cars, about the electric future, about how far along we are, the infrastructures, everything really. Covered it all in a few minutes. We'll have the SEAI will be there with us as well, talking about their stuff. Also, we'll have all the car companies be there. Volkswagen is going to be there. Seat will be there. Hyundai will be there. Someone else will be there as well. There's more as coming into it that are coming on. So if you want to come along to that, the tickets are available at that on the Ideal Home Show website. I don't know the cost. I couldn't tell you what the cost of tickets is. It could actually be free. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. But it's actually a good day out. I've been to the Ideal Home Show maybe 3 times now in the last few years. And it's actually, you learn some stuff out. There was guys there 2-3 years ago who were doing solar panel installation things. And I really had a good chat with those guys about how that works and how much it costs and how much the benefit is going to be to you. And although it's a bit salesy, you do find if you're going to do anything with your house, they've got something at that. And the electric car section of it was a massive hit the last time. I get to talk one-to-one with people, but also there's a large audience comes along. There's usually about 50-60 seats there. But every time I spoke for the 3 days, the seats were jammers with people asking questions, lads standing at the back trying to figure out what I was talking about. So it is, because I have no dog in a fight. So I'm not trying to sell anyone, and I don't care if you never buy a car. That's up to you. That's your problem, not my problem. That's up to salespeople and marketing people and people who are good at marketing cars. I don't sell anything. So I don't really care whether you buy a car or not. It's just as handy. So TikTok and the EA checking to see if a rumour of €2 per litre of Cork was true or not. I know that's Paddy who's putting up a few things. Paddy Common at the EA, who was taking over for Colin Faulkton and is making his own way in there. Paddy has sponsored the channel here a couple of times, and we're going to be working with Paddy later on in the year as well on other stuff to do with the EA. So EA has been really good to us. By the way, I'm actually looking for more sponsors for this channel. I have an idea that'll push us through the rest of this year. So I'm hoping someone's going to jump up and sponsor, or maybe a number of you will sponsor it. But we'll get to that later on. The €2 a litre, I haven't seen it yet. But I did hear a rumour again that it is a matter of time. As Eric Roch said here, it's a matter of time before it reaches €2 a litre. You can see it creep up. The problem is, I led a protest last year on this, lads. The problem is that the government has the chance to be able to lower the price of fuel in this country by just adjusting the excise duty on it and adjusting the taxes or the carbon taxes. More than nearly 60-something% of the price of a litre of petrol goes to the government in just taxes. It's not the shop, it's the government. The shop make a small bit out of it. But the shop have suppliers, they have to pay, they have all kinds of things going on. So this is the biggest problem we have, is that the government are just ignoring it in the hope that you're all going to change over to electric cars. In fair play, some of you can afford to change to electric cars, but more often than not, a lot of people cannot afford to upgrade to electric cars. The cost of living is rising massively, and they don't have the disposable income to throw into a brand new electric car, especially when it costs 50 odd grand for a car. And at its cheapest, you're talking about Renault Zoe, I think, is the cheapest electric car, most affordable electric car you can have right now, and even that's in there around the 30 grand mark. You know, it's 20, in that kind of 20 to 30,000 euro mark. Loads of people don't want to spend that kind of money at the moment. They're looking for a holiday. So they're really now that we've stopped with the restrictions, essentially in Ireland on the 28th of this month, which is only 2 weeks away now, we're going to stop with the enforcement of masks and social distancing and all that sort of stuff. They do rabbit on it, but we're still wanting to do it. But I cannot wait to just get rid of masks entirely and get that feeling out of the way. And in some situations, when you're wandering through a shop and having a little mutter to yourself inside your mask, you know, when you're having a little mutter like that stupid lunatic over there, you know what I mean? You know, the kind of stupid faces you make behind the mask. It's going to be weird for a while, I think. Wet and windy meats for Garrett Talbot's here as well. There's Fermanagh has dropped in 2 diesel is 153 pence per litre in Fermanagh, which wouldn't be far off the old €2 mark, really, when you're up there. You would be pretty similar prices to us. Like at this stage, it's very hard to predict where it's going to land. If this price keeps rising, you may forget about going to work, lads. And this really does affect particularly people living outside of Dublin City or not working in a big town and living in that big town as well. You know, if I was working here in Portlaoise, it'd be okay. I could probably cycle to work from where I am. But if I was living in Mount Rath and working in Portlaoise, you would only be able to drive. There is only one way to get here. And that's just Portarlington, Mount Rath, Mount Mellick, any of those places. There is no cycle lane. There is no bus infrastructure. There isn't a place that you could just jump on a bus in the morning and be in work on time. Particularly if you live or if you work in the industrial estates here, because there's no bus service at all to the industrial estates. So what do? Like, you have to drive. But if you can't afford to put fuel in, or if fuel has become such a high price for you that it's now like childcare, you know, because childcare is very expensive. So if fuel has become the problem, well, then maybe staying at home, like getting the PUP payment permanently, might be the only answer for some people, you know. All this wind, the wind farms were shut down, too windy. Yeah, I saw that the other day, actually. There was a little report, I can't remember the website I saw it on, where if it gets too windy, you have to turn off the wind farms because it'll force the spinning to be spinning too fast, and they can't keep up because the gearbox wouldn't work properly at that speed. Not that like it would just take flight. It's a propeller. It's a massive propeller. So I suppose there would be a problem behind it, but it just seems like it's like 2 steps forward and 1 step back. Is this like we're going to power the whole country by wind? It's very windy. Okay, stop powering by wind, for God's sake. It'll just blow down. It's terrible. There's Jared as well. Perfect day for the show. Isn't it just sit in, relax, take it easy. Don't do anything mad. Grab a cup of tea or a cup of coffee or something. Sit back and relax and take it easy. Automotive says there's not only fuel prices rising, we have a mad mayor of London wanting to charge per mile driven. That's the new tax, right? So that kind of tax has been talked about for a long time. If you imagine motor tax or car tax or road tax or whatever we want to call it, It's now environmental tax, even though they call it motor tax. It's actually an environmental tax. So it doesn't get spent on the roads or fixing roads or any of that crap. It just goes into a great big pot of tax and spent on environmental issues. But so they're always looking for a way to try and replace the tax. So because the tax take has continuously gone down, especially since they broke it into different bands. So tax band A, and then A1, A2, A3, and then B, B1, B2, B3. And so on to F, I think it goes down to. But as everybody starts to, Jim Shed, thank you very much, Jim Shed, just supported by, as usual, thank you very much, like clockwork, thank you very much, Jim Shed. But as everybody moves into A1, right, so all cars have found a way to get there, and particularly now that we have electric cars, which technically don't emit anything when they're driving along, right, so they're zero emissions cars. And yet you have to pay a motor tax. You have to pay an emissions tax on your electric car, which is, 105 or 150 or 125 or something in that, about 100 and something euro, which is a great saving for people. But the problem is taking it out of the exchequer system. So where you would have driven a B1 car might have been worth 300 quid a year to the government, it's now only worth 100 quid a year. And they can't continually sort of creep the price up a bit. For electric cars, up to 150, 175, 200. Then you kind of go, well, hang on a second. Why did I buy an electric car if it's going to pay the same rate of tax as I would have on a petrol car? So the idea that what the Mayor of London is talking about was actually mooted here as well by the Green Party, is to pay per, it's kind of like a pay per use, so pay per mile driven. So if you drive 10,000 kilometers a year, you pay the rate of 10,000 kilometers a year, no matter what the vehicle is, no matter what it's powered by. There are good sides of that. There are also bad sides of that. Driving for pleasure will be one of the things. It's one of the last few freedoms, I suppose, we really have in this country. Just get into a car and drive wherever you want to drive, as far as you like, and park there and come back. And you know you're paying all the high rates of tax already. So I don't know if you put that into it and you say, well, you have to pay per kilometre. I don't know where the pleasure comes from, the freedom. And I think it's one of the last few freedoms we actually have. You see the ferry I sent you a messenger about before, so stormy and push window. Oh, I saw that a few days ago. Yeah, that was in Germany. There's a ferry in Germany going along a river, and the wave hit the front of it so hard that it broke in all the windows on the front of the ferry. And I don't know if there's any injuries or anything, but it did take on water. It didn't sink, I don't think, but it did take on a little bit of water. A certain supermarket chain is charging considerably more at my local store than other stores just 15 miles away. That's market forces as well. So in our country here, we really only have 4 big names. There's a 5th big name, but wouldn't be quite as big. So you have Lidl, Aldi, Tesco and Dunnes. And then behind that you got SuperValu, which is Musgraves. So Musgraves would be a big name. And they'd be a very large importer and would compete quite heavily in that zone. But they also supply multiple other places other than just SuperValu. Musgraves supply like Centras and all these other places. But they're a big wholesaler. Musgraves would actually probably supply some of Dunnes Stores stuff and some of Lidl and Aldi and things. So, but our main competitors here, unfortunately, our local Lidl is being rebuilt into a bigger, much bigger Lidl, so it's actually closed. But there is still Aldi, Dunnes and Tesco in the same area in large shopping centres, and they would be competitive because they're across the road from each other. But there is actually a Tesco and Dunnes in other towns that are far apart, and the prices would be quite different, very different. We actually have 2 Dunnes stores in this town. There's a smaller one and a bigger one. A smaller one just got rebuilt into a bigger one. Two big ones. One of them does more clothes than the other, and one does a lot of foodstuffs. The other one's like a express version of it, just kind of smaller version of it. Still pretty good. But competition right now is going to level out because everybody's costs on everything has risen. And it's not a worldwide thing either. I keep looking at this as if people are going, well, the cost of everything's going up all over the world. And yet you look all over the world and the price isn't really going up that far now, I have to say. Particularly with petrol and diesel. I did make a VRT. We were talking VRT here before. I made a VRT TikTok the other day. Now that VRT TikTok has gone kind of viral. It's up like 100,000 views on it. But really what I was pointing out is an Audi A4 that we found, was sent to me on Instagram. The Audi A4 is £4,000. It's just an automatic diesel Audi A4, £4,000 over the border. And the VRT on it here is going to be €4,250. Now, someone said it was the wrong statistical code on it, but it still draws your attention to the price of VRT in this country. It's not the only VRT test I've had as well. I've actually had another one on Instagram that I got recently, which I'm just going to look up now, 1 second. So there's a BMW X5, a 2015 one for 21. I don't know if you can see that on the camera. Hopefully you can. Yeah, 21,995. So there it is there. It's just a white BMW X5. The VRT on that is the same price again. 21,890. 860? 21,860. Making this car that starts at 21,995 without converting it. Just add the two together. So you're up around 40 grand. Then convert the rate over and you're up around 50 grand for the imported 2015 X5. It's like, hold on a second. You went to a 50 grand car from a 21,995, which is probably what, 30,000 euro maybe at most. Tax on fuel, same thing in Belgium. Diesel and petrol at 180 a litre, mostly tax. It's just like, tax is just, we have to use, tax should be put onto things that are like luxuries, right? So we have various rates of tax. The highest rate of tax here is 23% or something, 23.5%. And the lower rate of tax, I think, is 16.5%. And then there's a lower rate again you can apply to other things. But realistically, we're supposed to tax things that are luxury items. So they're taxed in a luxurious way. They're meant to be something you tax so you don't buy much because it sounds expensive. But fuel is taxed like that. Fuel is taxed like it's some kind of luxury. When you keep looking at it going, it's not a luxury though. We have to fuel our cars because we have to go to work. We have to go and do things. It's impossible to survive in this country now without having a car. Yes, of course, you used to be able to do it in the 50s or the 60s or something. You could survive in this country without a car. Even into the 80s maybe. You can survive on other things, but realistically in this country it's not happening. And the idea that you can just keep adding lanes of traffic to the M50 or whatever to cure the problem just doesn't wash either. I know we need less cars on the road, but we have no alternative. The vast majority of people that live around here in Portlaoise, a lot of them work in Kildare, they work in Naas, they work in Tullamore. Some of them, very few, but some of them do work in Portlaoise, and they cycle to work or whatever. But even they have a car. Even they have the ability to drive up town, fill their boot full of shopping and bring it home. All these little things that have to be looked after. And unless the government addresses the price of fuel, we're in deep trouble. Really, we are. And unless they address the price of VRT, the car dealerships, I know all the dealerships are sitting back there grinning away to themselves thinking, well, you know what? I have VRT. It's all kept in a cute little bank account there for a while. But realistically, it's a rip-off on the general public. It just is. Jim Shea said, is there an EV with over 500 kilometre range out there for under 50k? Most average families can't afford EV6 or Ioniq 5. There isn't, Jim. No, really. There's kind of three levels of EV at the moment. So there's the most affordable ones being like MG, Renault Zoe. That end of the market is kind of 20 to 30 grand. Not 20, it's about 25 to 30 grand really. Then you have this kind of middle range ones. There's very few in there now. The new Megane might kind of fall into that place, maybe into the 30 to 40 grand mark. The lower end of ID3 might be in there as well, you know, just kind of cruising in around that 30 to 40 grand. Then you have the 50 and above that, and the EV6 starts at 50. I think it's 56 for the GT line, and then after that you're gone way, if you want to go far enough, like the BMW iX or any of this sort of stuff, but they're 115 odd grand. You can go far in them, but they're still very expensive. Tesla is still the king of long range stuff, so if you want to go 500 kilometers range, chances are you'll get it out of a Model 3, the long range one. They do have not the four-wheel drive. The four-wheel drive ones, the fast ones, are shorter range, but their battery technology and efficiency is absolutely outstanding. The cars are actually good as well. You will get that 500 kilometer range. Most people who buy a 500 kilometer range car don't really need one. I had the Citroen C4 EC4 a few weeks ago. It has 350 kilometers range or something on it, and it was more than enough for me to just drive around all week, charge it up a couple of times, and just forgot about it. Never really paid much attention to put more charge and just kept it the way it was. It was lovely, worked out perfectly well, and one of my favourite cars, actually. Strange. Did you hear news of Dublin Port? What do you think you're going? Moving it, yeah. God, it needs to go, doesn't it? Dublin Port is now too small for its own needs, and it is a rip-off getting out Dublin Port. I mean, it's in the city centre. You know where it is, right? It's like you're in the city centre nearly. You can see the city centre from Dublin Port. So when you look out, when you're driving out of Dublin Port, you're driving almost into the city centre, which is why Dublin Port Tunnel exists. So you turn right to go down by Dublin Port Tunnel, then you're spewed out onto the M50. But realistically, you don't want trucks or anything that near to the Dublin city centre. It's right out in the docks. Better things can be done with that area. If you moved it south towards Wexford or even north towards Drogheda, you'd be fine. But there is some talk of moving it. How quick that's going to happen now is going to be a slow process, usually because there is vested interests who are invested in keeping it where it is and don't want to change that, and they like the status quo. Status quo is a very important thing. No, it's not just a band, it's actually the way things are. It's very important for some people. The new Renault Megane E-Tech looks nice. It does actually look nice, yeah. Renault starting to get it together. Well, Renault have always had good design, I think. For the last maybe 5 to 10 years, Renault have been bringing out good looking cars. Look at a Megane over the last few years. I mean, you would have never got a Megane to look that well 15 years ago. It just wouldn't happen. So they really are starting to get it together. Love the Capture. I think the Capture is a really good looking car and still is. All its generations, I think there's only 2. It's been a gorgeous looking car. Kadjar can look a little bit awkward in places, but it's actually really good value for the size of the car. So they've been doing well. The new E-Tech looks kind of nice, but then Opel have just launched the new Astra as well, which really looks nice. That is a very handsome looking car. That's not out in full electric just yet. The E-Tech is full electric and will be arriving on our shores very quickly. But the Astra is going to take a little bit longer. I'm afraid to say that Opel could have stolen the thunder there very quickly by bringing out, first and foremost, electric version of the Astra, because that's kind of what we're all after, is that sort of 5-door hatchback that is electric as well, rather than these kind of remarkable looking weird things. A lot of them are. Carson said basic Megane E-Tech in Germany will be offered without DC charging and only single phase AC, which does not make sense these days. Doesn't make any sense at all if you're going to do any long range. Now, EV owners will tell you, and I've experienced it myself, that you spend 2 or 3 weeks and you don't ever plug into a DC charger anywhere. You just plug in at home, or you plug in on smaller chargers somewhere else. You go to a hotel, you plug in the overnight chargers. But there's no capacity to go further, so you buy the Megane E-Tech in this kind of cheaper version without the DC charging, which gives you this range, and then you're stuck there. You're going to have to use an AC charger to come home on, which the max on an AC charger, like ordinary ones, is 22 kilowatts. Now, if Megane charges at 22 kilowatts, you might just get away with it, because I had a Zoe here one time with a 22 kilowatt charger. It could accept 22 kilowatts and it charged at 22 kilowatts. And it was like fast charging. You pulled up with an ordinary small charger, plugged it in, you took it in 22 kilowatts, bang, it was full in a couple of hours, And no overstay fees. You can stay as long as you want on an AC charger. So there is benefits and drawbacks to it, but if you want to go far, particularly Germany is hardly a small country like. And the Germans like to go out on the Autobahn and go boom up the Autobahn to wherever they're going and get there quickly. So I don't know if that's going to work out for Megane, but then Renault wouldn't have a lot of sales in Germany, not anywhere near what Volkswagen would be at. Tesco will sell baked beans the same price all over the UK, yet food prices at Tesco can differ by 8 pence per litre in 10 miles. I know, yeah. Run is a different company. The fuel section of Tesco, we actually have one, I think, or 2 here in Ireland. They don't invest much effort into making Tesco fuels here as they do over in the UK. Wouldn't be the same level of business at all. But it's a very competitive industry. The taxes are the same no matter what you sell the fuel at. The taxes are very high in the UK as well. Make no mistake, there's an awful big tax take that goes into the UK coffers. Her Majesty likes to take her bit of petrol as well. But in this country, it's Minister Eamon Ryan, and he doesn't seem to want to address what is really happening. The core problem we have here in this country is the sheer volume of taxes we are paying, between stealth taxes and then just tax on taxes. You got VAT, then you got excise duty, then you have VRT, then you have VAT as well. So there's all kinds of taxes. We seem to be paying taxes over the tax. But certainly you could get a big difference in price as well. I have to give a big shout out as well to the guys from Bumblebee. If you don't know what Bumblebee is, Bumblebee 1000 is the name. You find it on Instagram. Put it on my Instagram stories today. It is kind of a similar idea to Cannonball. It's on a different time of the year. Guys in fast cars zooming around the countryside, trying to raise some money for charity. This one is going to Little Blue Heroes. So it supports on Garda Síochána have a charity system set up to help young individuals to kind of live out their dreams and have a lovely time. And they're helping us with this event. So I'm going to take place in that. It's on in June this year for 3 days. Haven't sorted a car or anything for it yet. I'll get around to all that after. But I'll figure out what car it is. But I'm going to take place in that. So it's Bumblebee 1000 doing that this year. Cannonball is on later on the year. I think it's on in September or October or something this year. So there's more to come on that later on. Dara William Conan, thank you very much, Dara, for sending some money by PayPal. You're very good. I'll be asking about raising money for the charity drive closer to the time of Bumblebee. It is actually on in March as well. They're doing a weekend in March. So I'll be taking part in Bumblebee this year, which I was not expecting, but I am doing that. Graham Cullen says, vehicle tax. Remember when the engine size determined tax? My wee sock when jumping from 1.3 to 1.8 litre. I know that mine still does. I have a 15-year-old Seat Leon. It's a 1.6 and it's still based on engine capacity as the tax. So I pay way more tax than I would if it was a 2009 version of the same car with the same engine. I'd probably pay 150 quid a year. It's low emissions, low CO2. But because it's an old car, they're on top of me like a lunatic every 3 months looking for tax. We only pay the 3 months thing. I know it's cheaper to buy about a year, but we're miserable like that. We like to do nothing, just pay the minimum and let it go. But yes, tax is the motor tax, the motor section of it, which is now an environmental tax, of course, is a huge expense for older car drivers because it was based on engine capacity. So anything over 2 litres, I think, was €1,250 a year. So a 3 litre engine was €1,250. So everybody bought 3 litre engines because the tax didn't change from 2 to 3. It was the same tax. Different now, though. So we're all getting tiny engines now. Jim says Millennium Park Nace was in there today, actually. 65 brand new TFI coaches ready for service, and not one of them are electric or hybrid. Yet the government who actually paid for them are advocating EV dominance. This is my argument for months now. Dublin Bus ordered 20-something new buses just before the system came in that forced them to get electric buses. They bought just straight diesel ones. The bus network for Ireland bought some hybrid buses. I'm telling you, 100% hybrid buses are useless. Useless at bringing down the CO2 emissions because it's huge. It's not going to run on batteries any distance whatsoever. The assistance, it's going to be mild hybrid at best. So with all the battery powered buses they could have done, you could have said like half those coaches. I would have been happy enough if someone said to me, listen, we bought 65 new coaches and 30 of them are full electric. Now we're making a commitment. Now we're on the way. But for the amount of time that we have to spend going, buy a new car, buy this car, make sure you buy only electric car. You can only buy electric car, don't buy anything else. And yet, the people who are telling us to do that are just buying diesel yokes. They're just still buying the same old thing they were buying all along. Nothing has changed. They'll do nothing till they're forced to do it. And that, unfortunately, is the way this country seems to run quite well. So does the UK, just so you know. Tony Parkinson says, hi Bob, first week driving the ENIAC 80, 90% charge at just above freezing, was giving me 200 miles range, less than the 333 miles WLTP, but it's what I expect is good enough for me. That's the key. I think a lot of car companies seem to be basing their sales or trying to encourage people into electric cars by talking about the range of the car rather than talk about the dynamic, which is what we used to do when we're selling cars or getting people to buy cars. It was about how it drives, how it feels, how it makes you feel, how much freedom you have, the wind in your hair, the top down. We talk about all this. Now we go, it's got 500 kilometers range. Buy it. You should. It's got a 90 kilowatt hour battery. And you're going, well, I don't really need to buy that car because it doesn't make any sense. But yes, you're right. On really windy or really windy days is not good either for electric cars. Not good for any car. But on a really windy day, you expect to get a little bit less range because the car has to fight the wind a bit more. On a really cold day, then you're using the heater more often inside. The battery has to heat itself a little bit as well. There's all kinds of things that draw electricity down from the car. Generally speaking, though, I found the ENIAC to be pretty good on its range. It just doesn't. You get used to it, so used to it after a while, you kind of forget to charges, which is what I do sometimes. So I bring home an electric car and just park it at the door and leave it there and go, I'll charge it later on. Then I go out to use it and go, should have charged this, didn't charge it. Bender says, hello Bob, love the show. Do you think the future of wireless charging EVs? Thank you. No, I don't think wireless charging is actually that efficient anyway, even on your phone. So as an example, if heat is built up, that's less efficient, no matter what the situation is. So follow me on that rationale, right? Engines in a car, petrol diesel car, they're designed not to get too warm because they're not efficient. Once they get too warm, they're not efficient anymore. Once they're too cold, they're not really efficient anymore. And it's the very same for your mobile phone. So when you plug in your mobile phone into a wired thing, which is what I've plugged this one in, there's the dirty old wire that I have hanging on place. When you plug it in, that's the most efficient way of charging because the electricity runs along the cable, goes straight into the battery, and there's no kind of environmental reasons to keep it separate. When you put it down a wireless charger, if it's not making perfect contact with a wireless charger, you get heat all over the place. Once there's heat, then you've got less efficient charging. And when you're talking about a battery that is now 90 kilowatt hours, big batteries, 100 kilowatt hour batteries, and you're trying to charge them wirelessly, most electricity is going to disappear into the environment that's meant to be going straight into the car. And how do you make contact with them? And there's all kinds of problems. I just don't think wireless charging is very efficient, and I don't think it's a good idea. I mean, it's how long does it take just to plug in a plug? Like, just go click, plug in a plug and walk away. It's much more efficient. The only good thing about wireless charging is you can just pull up over it and walk away, or you might be able to do it some way while you're driving or something, some sort of version of that. But I don't think there's much of a future to it, no. Dara says, hi Bob, solar panels didn't blow off in a storm, thank God, good man. In fact, they produce maximum power for most of the day because the wind keeping the panels cool. Solar works in Ireland even in winter. That's pretty interesting. Never thought of that. So the wind, the breeze, the general breeze keeping everything cool, which allowed more efficient thermal management of the whole thing. That's pretty cool, isn't it? Be nice to see. I'd love to put on solar panels. It's just still so bloody expensive. I haven't really worked very hard to make it happen, because it's very hard to decide what to do at any point, because there's only so much money you can put into things and how much return you get back out. Because electricity is still fairly cheap to buy from anybody. If you shop around, you can get a reasonable return. Not free, obviously, like it would be from solar panels, but it is still reasonably cheap enough, you know. There's Colin Whelan. Has dropped in too many TCs. I don't know what that is. What's the TC? Is that something I said a few minutes ago? Hi Bob, can't wait to ride on a new Dart Plus. Can this be the alternative metros to reach out as far as Kildare? Your thoughts? I hope you get a similar electric intercity trains. Thanks. They seem to be going in a lot of different directions, don't they? They seem to be kind of going, we're going to look at the Dart, we're going to make the Dart go to Kildare, we're going to do, you know, and I understand it. And we need to get more people to work by public transport. 100% behind that. Public transport is the answer to most of our problems, but only if it's on time, efficient and reasonably priced. That's the three things that must be looked after first, because right now, while it's a lot of time it's actually on time, does pretty good, it's not always late, it is bloody expensive to take public transport. And I could easily debate all day with anyone that you could easily drive from Portlaoise to Dublin and back again for cheaper than you can do that on a train. And you can actually get to your destination directly outside the door of your destination in the car. And other than like a big high performance petrol yoke, everything, particularly electric, is definitely going to get me where I want to be, and it's definitely going to be cheaper than public transport. I still debate that public transport should actually be free in this country, that we should be using our tax money efficiently to build things for the consumer, so the consumer, so the general population, so the citizens of Ireland can benefit in that conversation, rather than building things like industrial estates in the middle of Dublin city centre, or somewhere out in the sticks of Dublin city centre, and then just ignore them. Just go, yeah, there's your industrial estate, now get your workers to work. And what happens? They all drive, because there's no way getting in there in public transport. It's too slow. You know, public transport is very, very slow. And that's okay. It's all right to be slow, as long as it's efficient or free or cheap or something like that. I'd love to have you aboard, by the way, if you want to go over to any of the channels that are linked down below, including the PayPal and Patreon, or any of those places that you want to do, because we're going to be expanding this channel throughout the next few months. To do all kinds, not just this channel, but all the channels. So there's another channel coming as well, which I hope is going to happen. And there's a podcast channel going to come out too. all part of the same sort of plan to get everything together. So if you can help me with that one at all, financially it'd be really good. I'm looking for a sponsor for the channel, not just one, multiple sponsors if possible. And we're going to do builds, project builds. We're also going to do multiple other little things along the way. Nothing profitable, all of it just for the sake of doing it, for the love of the car, which is what we're trying to do all along. Exclusive Auto Club says, can we not get rid of all of this on the windscreen? Of course you can, yeah. Why does it have to display? It doesn't. To be honest with you, it doesn't. I've seen the Gardaí thing that they have the little app on their phone. I've seen that in operation. I've seen the number plate recognition system in operation as well. It's able to tell you if you're banned from driving. It can even tell you with your license. Like if you scan a license on the side of the road, it can tell you if you've been banned, if you've got points. It tells you all in a little app. And the same applies for tax. Gardaí can phone up and find out if a car has been taxed, insured, NCT, the whole show. So it really doesn't, it isn't necessary. If you look at what the UK does, there's no disc on the front window anymore. Everything's done through the number plate system. So the number plate is scanned. The police officer driving along in their car, particularly in the traffic police, they have a little screen that pops up, and it says if the driver's been banned, it says what the driver's been doing. It says absolutely everything on the screen. So they know before they walk up and tap on your window what's the story, what's the skinny and the person in the car. And they also know about the car, so they know when the last time it was taxed, know when the last time the MOT happened. It should be the same here. It's just down to investment here again. It's down to investing in nothing for a long time, and now the Gardaí have new uniforms which look pretty good. They seemed pretty good. I don't know why the Gardaí just didn't ring up Snickers in Dublin and go, how much for this, make them, and take the word Snickers off them. Wouldn't that be the simple thing to do? I think they got them made by somebody totally different. Jimmy Penrose says, hi Bob, do you remember last year they did a whole Sunday service show on what to watch on the streaming platforms? Did you ever get to watch all the recommendations? I watched everything pretty much, I think, yeah. Yeah, we did go through all the streaming stuff last year, which is a bit of a laugh, actually. Things I've been watching this year, actually, there was one on Netflix called Dark, which we've been watching. It's a very strange sort of detective missing. You got to watch it. It's in German. You have to read the subtitles. There is a voiceover version of it, but it makes no sense. When you're looking at it, it looks like a Jackie Chan movie that's been dubbed into English, and just the mouth's going, blah, 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 but the words are coming out are not the same. It looks really weird, but it is actually pretty good. Dark was good. Very hard to find stuff on streaming platforms now that are even interesting. Some TV has come back. I watched Saturday Night Takeaway last night with Ant and Dec. That's very good. I know I'm a real big softie for Ant and Dec, but they're very like Morecambe and Wise and stuff. The stuff I grew up watching is the Ant and Dec moment. Also, a bit of health advice. Get out and get some walking done, lads. There's a brilliant thing called steady state exercise. If you're ever feeling like you don't want to run, or you don't want any of that kind of strenuous yoke, steady state exercise is going to a treadmill and walking at a brisk pace, or walking on the road at a brisk pace, but it's brisk walking, and it gets your heart rate up to like 120, 130, and it just sits there. It doesn't get any faster, it doesn't get any slower. Sits there. It's a great way of burning fat, great way of losing a bit of weight. And I know that everybody's thinking about losing weight this time of the year. Everybody's looking at their bellies, me too, and thinking about how to get rid of stuff. This is how to do it. Steady state exercise, really easy stuff. I'm doing strength and conditioning here in Portlaoise with Siva. Those guys have been pushing me pretty hard, so I've been putting on a bit of muscle because I need that, because my back gets sore and that kills me over time. So I gotta deal with the back issue. So I've been working with them really, really closely, and I'm doing. There's a thing on called Run Amok. It's in Nace. I'm going to take part in that. That's next month, actually. It's running through muck and dirt and stuff, and obstacle course in the mud. Sounds interesting, doesn't it? That's me, though. Hobbs says, in the UK, anyone can go online, look at a vehicle tax or MOT. Yeah, there used to be all kinds of ways of doing it in European countries. Then GDPR kind of changed that, but you should certainly be able to see if a car has been taxed or not without looking to see who's taxing it. You don't have to give away personal details without finding out whether a car is taxed. But then you want to make sure you're not all telling on one another as well. But looking back at the crude oil prices for a second, which I want to do again, because this has been a topic of conversation the last few days, you can see where the high points are to come along March 1980. And then we flick forward here to June 2008. June 2008 is where the whole world was ending financially and everybody was losing money. But it's been on, like, it's never reached those peaks again we are peaking again now. And if I think I can zoom in on that, it's kind of hard to zoom in on stuff. Yeah, there we go. So if I go back here a little bit, just bring in a little bit, there's the other peak from back here from 2014, then 16, then you can see it's dropped away there into 2020. In May it was at its lowest price, but it's been climbing pretty much steadily ever since. But we're at, now that's today, 90.55, so it has climbed today and yesterday. So 90.55 is where we are right now. So I don't know how much higher that can possibly go before we're breaking records again. And I know we are breaking records currently, but like to break any other records now, we'd have to get back up to 2011, say April 2011, it reached 142. If it goes over $100 per barrel, you can certainly expect €2 per litre easily in the very near future. Because we're already at $90 per barrel, which is not going to be an easy time for anybody coming up. If you want to get your spoke in, you need to go and talk to your local TDs. You need to start talking. You need to start opening your mind and thinking about what we can do to stop that happening. The other part of that is VRT. Don't worry, lots of politicians will try and wash their hands of the idea there's nothing we can do with market forces is what they're talking about. But nobody wants to talk about how much tax we're paying on the fuel, which is upwards of 60% of every single litre that goes out of the place goes in that way. And we are just forking it over every single time to the government parties and letting them run wild with it. And every time we let that happen, we're just allowing that to happen. That money goes away, they get used to taking it and then it never goes away. It's the same as the other taxes we've been paying all along, like the emergency tax that came in years ago, which is still hanging about there like a bad smell. We're still paying it all the time, which is the universal social charge. That thing, that's still there. USC, we still pay that. That was a temporary emergency tax back in, was that 2009 or 2008 or something that came in. Automobile 3 says the trouble is when crude oil drops, fuel prices do not. However, soon goes up again, fuel goes up. It is very slow. They kind of lag, they're supposed to lag about 2 weeks behind each other, which I think is actually nonsense. It doesn't really. They cream it on and off for a couple of weeks after it goes up and down. Problem is it never really comes back down to where it was. So even when crude oil prices drop back to like 2014 prices, it doesn't really drop away at all. It kind of stays at the pumps. It stays somewhere near the same, and that I suppose would be the biggest problem for anyone out there. Now I do see another thing that's popped up here on. I'm just going to bring that up on the screen for us here because there's something else we need to talk about. This concerns the is that the right one? It is, yeah. There's a lot of screens open now all of a sudden. Hold on, need to clear off that first, and then we can go to this. This came off Twitter a few minutes ago. The UK proposes law to switch off EV home chargers during peak hours. Now, this comes from Inside EV, so this is not from me. It's not me stirring muck around. This was just tweeted at me on Twitter a few minutes ago. But I want you to think about what that means to you, right? As an EV owner, if this was from you can actually see who tweeted me up there in the corner. If this was from you, and you had just bought yourself an EV and you're thinking, well, I want to charge it and I don't give a crap about peak prices or peak hours or anything else. I just want to charge my EV. Would you be okay with the government being able to switch off home chargers? I'm not sure how they'd manage to do that. How would they manage to do it? Would it have to be a smart charger? I don't think the government has any control over electric chargers, but I suppose there are ways and means of linking them all together. Going into effect next year, a new law aims to protect the grid from excessive strain. It won't apply to public chargers though. So home chargers, they're talking about getting rid of home chargers being able to charge during peak hours. What do you think? Do you agree with that? Do you want to do that? Any interest in that? Hi Bob, I see the government have decided the USC is here to stay, says Sean Murray. That's the thing, Sean. That's it. I think they decided it was here to stay from day one. From the time it came in to right now, it's still here. Let's just look at the other end of that scale. We have Irish Water, which we don't pay water charges, right, directly. But they invented Irish Water. We still have Irish Water. They're still there doing their thing. They're all still being paid. All them people are still going on right now. Like, that doesn't change. So when you allow something to happen for the government, it tends to stay forever. That's all that happens. If it works for them, they can collect that money, they just leave it there. Monik says, some time ago, a barrel of oil, I presume, cost over $130, but the cost of fuel was still at $130. I think government's just hiking the price to pay for the COVID loans. That's what I hear a lot of now, is the COVID thing. So how much money was spent out in COVID times for lockdowns, for PUPs, for allowing people to stay at home, paying their full price. Or actually, some people got paid more to stay at home than they did to get paid to go to work. So I think some of that obviously comes back for it. But I find it difficult to understand as to why the government will not talk to people about what's really happening. They just say it's inflation. Inflation. Put a lot of on those kind of words, and yet we know there's more than just inflation going on here. There has to be more to that frame than what's just happening right now. Things are gone up in price because fuel went up in price, because gas went up in price, electricity's gone up in price, everything's gone. We sat and did the bills the other day. Electricity's gone up by a good bit. I actually wrote it down. Hold on now a second, because it was on the radio talking about this as well. I think it was on Midlands 103 talking about it. Yeah, okay, so I'm with Energia. That'll tell you who I'm with, right? My gas bill, electricity bill has gone up. No, gas bill. The standing charge for gas is €16.29. That was last year. That's the standing charge. So you pay that whether you use a bit of gas or not. You pay €16.29. This year it's €21.70 for the same gas. That's the standing charge. Unit price went from 0.055 to 0.078 in the same period. So that's gone up. VAT is 13.5%, so it's €40.35. And the government are going to give us €200, but actually that's bull, because it's €200 less the VAT, so they're going to give you €173 off your next bill. €173 off it. That's it. And they're not giving it to you either, they're giving it to the electric company. Just so you know, you're not getting any of that. It's a great way of making you feel like you're getting something done. It really is. So much more could be done than that. I saw hundreds of Tesla Model Ys arrive in Southampton. Buyers collected them. I hope it wasn't on that bloody ship. There's a ship out in... that was a good story, actually. There's a ship out in the Atlantic has been abandoned. There was a fire on board. Crew abandoned the ship. There's a whole heap of very expensive cars on board. And it's left there. It's floating out. If anybody needs a few cars, they're floating out in the Atlantic here somewhere. North Atlantic, or is it South Atlantic somewhere? I can't remember. Ship abandoned with cars. See if we can find a story on that. We can, from CNN, which would be pretty good. We'll flick over to that and have a look. Let's get rid of that. But the Tesla Model Ys, what you're looking at there, sorry Jimmy, the Tesla Model Ys you're looking at, arrived in Southampton, the buyers collected them from the ship. Never heard that before. They're probably in such a hurry. They've been waiting so long for the car. They just want the thing and they want to get moving on it. So I'd say that's probably what it is, actually. We'll flick over and have a look at the cargo ship full of cars. Why is that? Oh, it's got one of those bloody accept all things on it. Anyway, so that cargo ship was on fire, and luxury cars on board. So there's tons of that. 656 foot long Felicity Ace roll-on roll-off car has caught fire in the North Atlantic on Wednesday, and it carried Porsches, Volkswagens from Emden, Germany to look at all those places. Oh my God, all those cars have been abandoned on board, and it's still out there. It was abandoned, and I don't know if they're going to go back out, and I would assume they're going to take charge of it, because ships that size can actually get lost. Like that's not very big in comparison to the ocean. If you don't keep an eye on it, it just disappears. Heads off into the wild blue yonder. I love that kind of thing. Tony Parker says he would not be happy with the government being able to control when you can and can't charge your car, because they are proposing that they can take control of your charging, and during peak hours you won't be able to charge your electric car. Now, the thought of having any government interference in when I can and can't use electricity really bothers me. And I know they can frame it. They frame it in a way that it sounds like they're doing it for your benefit. But really, I don't want the government to know anything about what happens in or around my house when it comes to charging things, using electricity. If I want to pay for it, that's my right. I'm going to pay for it. Just make more electricity is what the answer is to that, I suppose. Graham Collins says, streaming lots of Fast and Furious films included in Prime just now. The franchise certainly needs some crazy stories. Prime needs a bit of an update. I find Prime has a very unusual list of stuff to watch, and then when you go into it and start rooting around, you end up just watching Clark's Farm, which is brilliant, by the way. But it does kind of go, is there anything else to watch? Even Netflix, I find Netflix just gives you like blah, and you don't know where to start. It's quite an investment of time to get at it, but it takes a while. The government are looking at making EV drivers potentially selling electric back. Use of smart meter would be necessary. Yeah, well, that's in this country, in Ireland here, we've no facility for getting paid for that. So it is returnable to the grid, but the grid has not agreed a price to actually, it's starting to, but they haven't agreed a price to do it yet. And there's so many little issues, like, is it worth it selling it back to the grid? Like, if it's only going to be a couple of cents here and there, it's usually not really worth it. There's the wife now, just on time, must be halfway through our mind. What's that now? Coffee? Oh my God, we got coffee today. Not, what was the other thing? Ginger and lemon. We didn't get ginger and lemon today. She's looking lovely, by the way. She is, really is. I know you've never seen her, but some of you have at meets and things. I've met her. She will be along to some meet at some stage in the future. But yes, the government are looking to make EV drivers sell it back. So the dream we all live in for EVs, if it's possible, is we take in solar on the roof. It charges a big pile of batteries on the side of your house. The batteries charge your car and run your house, and anything spare left over goes back into the grid, and you make a little bit of money from it, right? Wouldn't that be brilliant? So somewhere along the line, they pay you to take the electricity off you, and at the same time, they shut down their coal-fired power stations and their, the polluting power stations that are out there, and we all live in this happy world. But realistically, what's really happening is people want to make profit. Car companies want to make profit, right? And electric companies have to make profit because that's the nature of the business. And so realistically, do you really think that all these electric companies really want to pay you for the electricity to come back out? I think there's just a lot of resistance attached to that. I think that's going to happen a lot. With standing charges, when you economise and use less, they put up the standing charge. I converted our dealers to LED. Did not save anything as a standing charge is above tariff. That's the problem. Same as going to a night meter. So in this country, we can use night rate meters. So after a certain point of the day, that could be midnight, the rate drops dramatically for using electricity, maybe even down to 8 cent or 6 cent or somewhere around there. But the problem is, what they do is they put the standing charge up on the night rate. They actually charge you twice, I think, for night rate. They charge you for a night rate meter and a day rate meter. And also your day rate goes up. So you have to really work very hard to make the night rate work for you, because you have to, you'd want to turn everything to run at nighttime or be doing very high mileage. I can't remember what myself and Des worked out one day. I think it's 30,000 kilometers a year or something where night rate will start to work for you. But up to that point, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I'm very surprised to see the price of electricity really go up, but it wasn't even electricity for me. It was the gas one that was actually the biggest surprise, because gas has gotten so expensive. And I know some of that's coming from the Russian end of things, because we do import a lot of gas. The biggest customer of Russian gas is Germany, weirdly. There's a huge big pipeline running in the what's that called, Baltic area, that whole sea area there. And that pipeline runs almost directly into Germany. We actually import Russian gas. Well, everybody does, kind of. Monik says, if NATO imposes severe sanctions on Russia, Putin will retaliate by limiting or even cutting natural gas imports into the EU, which severely affect us. The EU will suffer lack of self-sustenance. This is true. And unfortunately, an awful lot of places can't do anything else. So because of carbon emissions and because of carbon taxes, a lot of our coal is now not available to buy. The briquettes are nearly imported now because Bordemona stopped making them. There's so much greenwashing going on at the moment, and actually in the greenwashing factor as well, I tweeted Dunn Stores last night, because there's 2 labels on the thing that I bought, and one of the labels is a greenwashing label. You just pay some money and you get to put the label on. It means nothing. And the other one was like, we don't recycle. This is not recyclable. You may just throw that in the landfill. That's what it meant. And I was just wondering, it was on my Twitter last night if you were interested in that. But yes, with the EU is going to be in deep trouble if America and Britain keep pushing very hard, as they seem to be doing right now, about Putin and about invading that area. And yet you listen to the people on the ground in the area, the people from the Ukraine, the people from Russia, they were interviewed, and they're going, no, we'd never invade. Why would we invade? They're our brothers. Now, there's misinformation or disinformation happening on both sides. Who knows what the real story is? I don't think anyone really does at this stage. But for whatever reason, there seems to be a lot of saber rattling from this side, from the Americans, from the British, from even the French and all. There seems to be a lot of kind of, now, calm down, move your troops away. And from the Russian side, they're controlling it very well by saying, well, we're never invading, we're just doing some exercises. Like, you're just hanging around. We've only moved 3/4 of our forces to the border there. But I don't know what's going to happen then if Putin decides that if we put sanctions on Russia, Russia could put sanctions on us. And Russia and China work together quite a lot. So the sanctions on us would be gas. They're the gas boys. Dara says, surely if we're forced to charge our cars off peak and our home batteries and use our appliances all off peak, sooner or later there'll be no off peak. That's the problem. If we all go night rate meter and then start using all of our electricity at night time, because everything become more efficient. Everything in this house is LED. I think the biggest consumer of electricity is this computer that I'm sitting at in this house. Because it's a gaming PC and it also runs all of my video stuff. And I have 2 computer screens. This one I plug a Mac into every once in a while, and I use that as a large screen for editing because I use a MacBook Pro, a 13-inch one for editing. But when I want to edit at home, I hook the whole thing up here on a HDMI out and do the editing on that screen. It's also good color reference to it. And that's about it in the whole house. There's a couple of laptops in here. There's a few other bits around the house. There's a TV downstairs. Will probably be a big consumer as well. But it's not on that much. It's only on the evening really at this stage. And everything else is so efficient these days that energy consumption should be going down, but it's actually going up because we're getting more and more electronic devices. Phones will play a part in that as well. iPads, all them things that draw electricity the whole time. Whereas these old phones here behind me charged once every couple of weeks, maybe once a month. And that's all you need to do. You can make all the phone calls you want to. It's fine. Them were the days. We always look back at old times like nostalgia, don't we? Put on a pair of rose tinted. In my day, in the 80s, it was much easier. Life was simple. Well, it wasn't. It was fair smelly and dirty, actually. Shatantu says, thinking of retrofitting infotainment on a Prius 2018. As the only downside, it doesn't come with Apple CarPlay. Is it a good idea? Would you know any good infotainment system can be installed? You would have to, I don't know, if you could retro install Apple CarPlay without getting a professional to do it. There's a guy on on Instagram called CarPlay Installer. He's flat out, he does it for dealerships and stuff, because a lot of those Prius, the Jap import of those Toyota Prius, they come with Japanese built in, no English. You can't go into the menus and flick about till you find an English setting. It's in Japanese only. So be very aware when you're buying a Jap import car down your local dealership that everything should be in English. And if it's not in English, please don't buy it, because all that happens is you can't change it to English. You sit there trying to wonder. I was in Jason McConnell's GTR, which is a Jap import, and all the menus are in Japanese. No idea what half the stuff does. You're pressing things going, what's that for? What's that for? What does that do? It's all been mapped out. He had to get it all mapped out and changed, and he's got buttons now to change the mapping system on it. But essentially, a Jap import can have all these problems. But putting in Apple CarPlay is brilliant. Apple CarPlay is very good. And you could probably buy something from a shop. But as far as I know, Apple CarPlay is a licensed product. So it's much harder to buy it down like in Halfords or something. Most of the Android ones in Halfords are very good. And I've seen a few online that actually play videos, and you can hook up Nintendo Switch to and stuff and play video games through it. Obviously not while you're driving, but you can hook up different things to it. So you'd have to shop around really, but there's nothing I could recommend about putting CarPlay into a Prius from 2018. There's always a solution to these things. 40% nighttime and 60% daytime use is around break even. Even if you can keep daytime usage under 60%, it's probably worth switching day-night meter. Could be, Jimmy. Yeah, you'd have to, individual situations, you'd really have to, it's very hard to say you should or shouldn't. I think people need to really sit down and do the mathematics behind it. I think maybe 6 months of car ownership, electric car ownership, and you'd soon find out your charging habits as to whether you need to charge daily or you're going to charge 3 times a week or twice a week or once a week, or which way your routine goes, because the car is going to be the biggest drawer of electricity. And I noticed that whenever we have a PHEV or electric car here, our electricity bill, you can see it on the electric bill. Every time I've charged the car, you can see the little peak and trough as it goes through. So, but I would, on some weeks, my mileage is all over the place. Could be up, down, could be down. Next week, for instance, I have a Skoda Enyaq and I'm going to be going to the airport. So obviously I'm going to charge the car to 100% that night, drive it up. I'm not going to charge in the airport because it's too hard to find a bloody charge point in the airport that you can leave it at for 24 hours. And then I'm going to drive back on the same charge. I might charge, if I have to charge somewhere on the way, I will, but I don't think I will. It's a Skoda Enyaq, it'll be fine. So your charging habit, I think, maybe before you switch to night rate meters or invest big money in all kinds of stuff, maybe you should just look, does your bill go up by much? How much it goes up? How many miles you're going to be doing per year? Just kind of wait three to 6 months before you install anything, because if you don't get the use of it, going back to standard rates or going back to other rates is going to be quite difficult. It's always harder to downgrade these things than to upgrade these things. So once you're on the tariff, you're kind of stuck there for a bit. But it's definitely worth shopping around for the best rates, because the rates that I found, we were looking at them last week on Bonkers, was like 17 cents or something per kilowatt, which is quite a saving from where we were, considering that gas has gone up massively in the last 12 months. Gas is way more expensive now than electricity in this house, even though we use much more electricity we do gas. Gas does the heating here, heats our hot water, and we don't have an alternative. It is gas and gas only. Monovision says China produces the majority of solar cells. China produces the majority of everything on Earth. I think at this stage almost everything starts out in China somewhere. Malaysia, China, Bangladesh for clothes. The rest of the electronic stuff all come out of China. 80% of factories use forced labour. That we'd have to prove that. Minorities like Uyghur, Falun Gong practitioners and others, it's damn hard world to navigate in an ethical way. When it comes to ethics, I have there's a lot of greenwashing. There's a lot of washing your hands of ethics. And I noticed that BMW, who launched a PHEV recently, that I still can't talk about, not for another 3 days. But BMW launched a PHEV car recently, and it's a lovely car. It seems to work out. It's a bit weird looking, but the rest of it is pretty good. And in the back of all this, they very carefully put up a huge big screen to say that they'd signed up to what I think they called it the Cobalt Alliance or something it was called. An ethics group that goes out and supposedly inspects what's happening in Africa, because Africa is the biggest producer of cobalt in the world. They've got cobalt mines, huge ones out there, and they're producing a huge amount of it. But early on, they were using child labour. That's what people were talking about. That there was child labour being used for these coal mines or cobalt mines. Whether it was true or not, it doesn't make a difference. That's what people were talking about. And then that kind of went away and was replaced with people who were not getting paid very much to pull the cobalt out of the ground. Now, I'm aware that cobalt is used a hell of a lot in the petrochemical industry as well. So it's not just for electric cars. This is just cobalt use in general. But I do think there is this idea they sign up to this alliance and just go, well, the alliance says that the cobalt is clean. Blame the alliance when it's not clean. And that's what I think seems to happen an awful lot. Like, we're looking at repack recycling last night, coming out of Twitter. Let's see if I can find it here. And what bothered me most last night, in the middle of me asking Dunn Stores about their recycling, was nobody wants to talk about this thing, which is, and I'll show you now. So if you look at that, the green dot, this is the most common yoke you will see on packets when you're recycling them. So when you buy something, you'll see this. So this is a European trademark. It means that the suppliers and producers have contributed financially to the recycling of packaging in Europe. Contributed financially. Now, it's not that they're recycling anything here. They've spent money to make sure that things are getting recycled in Europe. Sounds laudable and affable, but realistically, it means nothing. It means absolutely nothing. And if you look down on these lists, there's loads of these things. This symbol indicates that it can be recycled. Look how many symbols there are. Look how many different things you're supposed to have to learn yet. Look at all this stuff. This is ridiculous. Like, makes no sense. But that one there bothered me on that package, because on the packet, it had two things written on it. One was, it's not yet recycled, and the other one was that green dot. And there was no explanation of what the green dot meant, or what it was for, or who was there. So are we not doing the same thing with the cobalt, with the precious metals that have been mined out of the ground for all cars, not just electric cars, all cars? Are we not responsible to the world to say, we don't need to replace the 2.5 million cars in Ireland with 2.5 more million cars in Ireland, creating this massive recycling job that has to be done. Because what do we do? I mean, if we're doing the electric transformation, right, which means we're going to dump all the cars we have. That's what the end goal is, assuming that we're going to just transfer over to be fully electric. That means get rid of all the stuff we have now. So if you get rid of them, where do you put them? Are we just going to export them to other countries so they can use them until the end of life? Are we going to put them into Cuba or Africa somewhere, maybe into the Congo or something? What happens to the cars we have? There's our problems. That's my problem, because I think the biggest contributor to environmental damage in the world is us making new things. It's the constant upgrade of the newest thing on the market is the best thing on the market. That's what we keep doing. Graham Cullen says, Joe Rogan. Oh my God, Joe Rogan. Is he back in the bleeding news again? Episodes 1776 and 1777 last week were about the environment, energy. Very interesting. First guy said, carbon isn't humans' fault, keep burning. Second guy said, it isn't humans, and here are workable solutions. Well, carbon is created by anything that burns, but carbon is consumed by the planet again. So it's not like carbon is created and never goes away. It does actually go away. It's taken in by plants and photosynthesis and produces oxygen. That's carbon is part of that system. Now, NOx from diesels particularly and carbon buildup would be something that would have to be worried. But carbon is relatively carbon in the air is relatively harmless. It makes you feel lightheaded. It's a gas. It's high. It floats away. NOx sits on the ground. NOx falls out of the back and just sits on the ground. The problem is in the city environment, it builds up between all the buildings. And then you're breathing it in. And that causes cancers and all that sort of stuff. So when you look at what carbon is, and there's all kinds of sides to it. There's all kinds of arguments. But the thing is, the most important part is that conversation is breaking out. And that people are asking questions, because there is a sort of rhetoric that comes in with when you particularly talk about electric cars. There's a sort of group of people who get involved in that, and they are very forthright, and they're very, no, this is true. This is the only way it can happen. You can't do it another way. But then there's perfectly rational arguments that get shot down in the middle of that just makes sense, because there's a huge expense that has to be put out there for buying electric cars and buying into that electric dream. But also there's a huge expense of what do we do with the cars when we're finished with them. Not just electric cars, but all the petrol and diesel cars on the road right now. In this country, we have about 2.5 million privately owned vehicles in the car park. And the vast majority of those, and I'm talking well in excess of 2 million of them, are either petrol or diesel. Electric car ownership is still relatively niche, although everyone's talking about it. It's still, at the moment, it's still not the biggest part of the market. The biggest over 60% of the market at the moment right now is just straight diesels. That's where the market really is, because the incentives are still on the diesel for business. So businesses can still claim back the VAT on a diesel. They can still claim back the VAT on any expense they have to do with. They can do it on electricity as well, but the VAT bill is not the same. Not as much VAT going into it. But when I noticed that in the grand scheme of things, when you look at electric cars, they're a fragment of the things we must fix before we can go any further. And if you look at carbon as the bad thing, and then you exclude everything else, that's where we have a problem. You can't just exclude NOx. You can't just exclude chopping down trees. Everything you see is manicured. You look out your window of your house right now at a green or a green area or in a housing estate. It's all manicured. You're looking at it, and the wind has taken away anything that wasn't manicured. So the wind has destroyed that. And the more we ignore that, we have to stop meddling with things to make things okay, that we can make things happen in a controlled environment without having to buy new things, without ordinarily just replacing and buying stuff all the time. Now the guy mentioned e-fuel would surprise me. E-fuel is something that Porsche was coming up with, which is just to replace. It's essentially, I don't know if it's e-fuel you mean or what you're talking about here, but there was a Porsche thing which is still going ahead. The idea is that they will make fuel. It's still combustible. It's still carbon fuel. It's still petrol, essentially, but it's not fossil fuel. It's not coming out of the ground. They're going to make it in a lab. So they can continue fueling their cars into the future. Which is an interesting way of looking at it. It's not lower CO2 rating, I don't think. It's going to be about the same, but it's not a fossil fuel. because oil under the ground is essentially dead plant matter and dead dinosaurs and bones and things that just kind of died and sank into the ground, become into a big pool, and that's where oil comes from. Coal is the same. Coal is dead trees. Essentially, it's trees that have just died over all the years. They get compressed under the ground, they get turned into coal, and they're compressed enough to get turned into diamonds. So diamonds are made from trees, kind of. But e-fuels or any of those other kind of fuels, when it comes to carbon, they're going to be the same as normal fuels. Essentially, it'll be basically the same. Car companies will spin it another way, but we'll see as car companies spin everything. Essentially, 99% of what a car company tells you is the truth, but it's a manipulated truth. That's essentially what it is. My wife is braving the outside world. She's going out. Out into the storm. Anyway, sorry for the loose statement. I read a report from Amnesty back in 2019 on the components, solar panels. The only signs that things have gotten worse. Well, I suppose there is a lot of let's say around China. We keep looking at things in China and going, that's bad. But we don't look at ourselves and think there's anything bad there. I don't know if you watch him. Russell Brand has a YouTube channel here on YouTube. And it's actually it's good if you can listen to him. He's very intense, but if you can listen to that guy, it's actually pretty interesting. He did a take, I think it was today or yesterday, on Trudeau in Canada, and Justin Trudeau is the Prime Minister of Canada, I suppose you call him, or the man in charge anyway, and he wants to have emergency laws available to him to stop the truckers' protest. The truckers are protesting there, or have been protesting there for quite some time, based upon the idea that they want to stop the restrictions. They want to get, because there's bits of Canada they can't drive into if you're vaccinated. There's other bits where they don't care if you're vaccinated or not. So truck drivers cross the whole country, and they want to get rid of the restrictions. And it's been going on all the time. And now Justin Trudeau wants to bring in these rules. It's the way government changes things, and I think if the way he wants to do the emergency rules, if that happened in China, you'd go, hang on a second, that's not right. You can't take people's bank accounts, just not pay them. You can't do that to China, but it's happening in Canada. So you all go, Canada, well, it's all right. Carbon neutral is made from carbon capture. Yeah, so they're capturing carbon from the environment and turning it into fuel. That sounds laudable. You often wonder, a bit like hydrogen, where you say hydrogen is really, really, really clean, but it's actually really dirty to capture the stuff in the first place. It actually puts out more CO2 in getting hydrogen and turning it into a fuel you can use. So there is a kind of, there's always a problem. So everyone comes up with a solution, there's always someone else with a problem for that thing. But it'd be nice to see, first of all, the stopping the use of fossil fuels would be really good. If we could use petrol and diesel that was made in a laboratory and used in our cars, you'd probably feel a little bit cleaner, even if you can't really afford to go into electric cars just yet, or you can't get delivery because the electric cars have quite a waiting list on them as well. Shiantu says, I'll get around to pronouncing your name probably one. He says, good news, Denmark are currently developing an artificial clean energy island that will not only help Denmark but also its neighbours. Should do similar off the Irish coast using tidal wind energy. Wouldn't it be deadly if we just built something in the Atlantic Ocean, which is enormous, that could multiple use? So you got tides, you got wind, you got everything. The Atlantic has got everything. It even has sunshine as well some days. If you built something, some kind of structure that could at least start to take the pressure off our own systems here, our own electric generation systems here, because we stopped the turf-fired power stations. There's two in Offaly, I think. They stopped both of them. They've reopened both of them because there's just not enough electricity. Without them, there's nothing to replace them. There's no way of stopping it. So they kept them going. So it's lovely. It was laudable. Yay, we closed them. And then they go, well, fuck, we'll have to open them up again since we don't have enough electricity. So herein lies the problem. We want to do the right thing, and let me be absolutely clear. I want to do the right thing, but I don't want this piecemeal. Let's do this because it's better for the environment. But we don't have a solution for that. So you can't make people go backwards to go forward. We can't be shot into the 1950s. So we have to do it all again in a clean, safe way. We have all the things we have now. We have to find a way to make them work that is not harmful to the environment. So the environment can exist with us, because the nature and earth moves much slower than we do. We build stuff, we recycle things, we get things going, we bury stuff, we get rid of stuff. But nature takes, how many hundreds of thousands of years did it take for the dinosaurs to turn into oil? Like, how long did that take? And we're just burning it. We're just setting fire to the stuff all the time as if it's infinite. And maybe it is infinite. Who knows? We always seem to reach peak oil every 10 years or so. Ocean Froggy says, even at 53 degrees north here in Ireland, solar PV works. 3 years in, has slashed our annual electricity cost by 55%. Used to be septic, but proof in the pudding. Skeptic. I said septic there a second ago. Yes, you can of course use solar PV here, yeah, but it's just when you see it in operation in Spain, where they have it absolutely everywhere. I landed into where is it called? Malaga a couple of weeks ago, and as you're landing into Malaga, you pass over a couple of car parks, and you can now see all the solar panels on the roof of the car park, because they put roofs over their car parks in Spain because the heat burns the inside of all the cars that are parked there for 2 weeks. And so that's why you see those reflective things. They put stuff in their windscreens to try and stop the car heating up inside, because when it gets hot in Spain, I mean it is hot in Spain. So they put roofs on most of the car parks over their houses or roof. So what they've done is they put solar panels on top of the roof, and the solar panels now run the lights of the car parks, and they charge batteries around the airports. Very clever stuff. So solar panels do work. They're great. In Ireland, you just don't get quite the 100% capacity that you're going to get all the time. And it very much depends, because our sun goes very low in wintertime. And in my case here, it actually dips behind another house in wintertime. So I wouldn't get a whole lot of solar stuff during winter. I'd get enough, but probably not a whole lot. But anything is better than nothing. Just the investment level of getting batteries, solar panels attached, you'd have to be investing in the future part of the house. It's a shame that we can't. I know there's some grants there attached to it, but it's a shame we can't do something that would really encourage people to make this happen. And I mean happen in a grand scale. I sat through a YouTube video once from, I think it was Berkeley Institute or something on YouTube. I forget who it was now, but what they were talking about was micro electricity generation areas. So supposing you and your 10 neighbours all got together. Thank you very much to Noel Griffin. Thank you very much, Noel. You're very good. Sending some money by PayPal. But supposing you and your 10 neighbours, so all 10 houses got together and put in a bulk order for solar panels, and at the same time a bulk area for a battery pack. So a battery, like a shed, like a big shed full of batteries, and it's all there. All your solar panels are charging those batteries. So you're all working together to charge a big bank of batteries. And your houses are drawing back that battery power as you want it, as you need it. And you can monitor how much each house is pulling from that battery pack. So you're all contributing in a small area to a big battery pack. And that battery pack is hooked up to the grid. And so you have smart grid systems that is feeding the grid when you don't need it. Nighttime, it's sucking away the energy off the, overnight, during the night, it's sucking away the energy off the batteries. And so you just put in enough. It'd be a genius idea to have a group effort instead of each individual house doing its own thing and doing different stuff. A group effort that you can really monitor and really work with when it comes to solar technology and getting off grid and getting away from needing electricity at all. And I think as groups could do, because if it was in a ring, some houses would get good winter sun, some houses would get good summer sun, all the houses would get good even sun. You could work it out so some houses will contribute actually more, but it won't matter. You just put more solar panels in the right place. Because you have the solar panels available in a horseshoe shape or whatever, you can get a better result every single time. And I think that's more what we need to do is small community systems instead of trying to do everything on our own. Because the idea of me here fitting a Tesla Powerwall thing attached to the house all on my own, and putting up solar panels on my roof on my own. Imagine if my neighbour was doing the same thing. Imagine if 2 neighbours were doing the same thing, and we had space between the 3 houses to be able to put the battery packs, where it wouldn't take up a big wall in my house. It's actually a different shed attached to somebody else's place, or it's in a field at the back or something. Some way that we can make that happen, which makes much more sense, which would get us all off the grid, or get us all some of the way off the grid and into actual clean energy. I mean, you can't get cleaner than solar, really, because there's no offset to it. It's just taking the sun as it stands there right now and using that. Mr. Call says, well, Bob, are traders feeling the squeeze all the time from Brexit and customs fees, or are people sucking up the cost of new cars and not have to worry about them? Well, no, they're worrying about them, all right. Traders are passing on the prices really. Now, yes, margins are down to some degree. Some of the 10% margin where the 10% Brexit taxes come in has been washed through. But realistically, the cars that are there are being sold at full price and over their full price. So the traders are making money of it. And traders will always make money because that's their job. Their job is to make some cash from you, from the sales of cars. And that's exactly what they're going to do. So all in for that part. But realistically, if everybody just stopped buying cars for 2 or 3 months, you'd find a big shift in the market. They'd all start complaining very quickly then because sales would go down. Right now, they can't get enough cars. There just isn't enough cars coming into the country. There just isn't enough cars being manufactured. I also hear from my friends in Renault, Paddy McGee and all those. I was chatting to those guys about stuff. They were talking about it moving on, not just from semiconductors now. It could be door handles, it could be springs, it could be windscreen wipers. Just aren't being produced fast enough to get onto the car. So there's cars standing all over the place waiting for stuff to complete their units. And that's kind of scary because it means we have more delays on cars. The problem with battery-powered vehicles is getting batteries. A lot of car companies don't make battery packs. They're made in China, they're made in Korea, they're made in different places, and they're imported into the company. So they're waiting for their turn in the system to get some battery packs in as well. And that means that everybody is sitting back waiting for deliveries of everything. I think if we could actually... People are not buying cars, they just can't be arsed to wait for them. And also there's a point of... When you trade in a car, you're trading in a car in 2021 for a car you won't receive until 2022, which means your car is going down in price as well. So there's a chicken and egg thing going on. But right now, the only thing the traders are feeling a squeeze on now is just getting stock. Very difficult to get anything out there right now. Ocean Froggy says PV battery allows grid shifting during midwinter. Night red electricity consumed during daytime. Half price winter electricity. You're dead right about co-ops. I think co-ops are the best... The simplest solution to think, because it's like Groupon. You could get together as a big group of 10 or 15 people and do something really clever as a community effort, whereby you could really take an interest in what's actually out. You're not just hiring in an electrician to do one job and it's done. You're getting a group effort that will work together as a big conglomerate. You might be able to produce enough electricity that would end up being cost negative. You know, you're getting paid for the price of your batteries through the electricity companies. The other alternative, I mean, I've seen a few other people saying, why don't you take your car, charge it at work to full capacity, bring it home, plug it into your battery on your wall and charge your battery on your wall from your car, which you got from someone else's electricity, which is totally possible in these days because now we have two-way. We can make the cars give back electricity into the house. As Hyundai and Kia have both managed to do in their cars. And that'll roll out as well. I think a lot of people are rolling out their stuff now at the moment. And I think I think the race or the urgency or the idea that Volkswagen are somehow looking over their shoulder, Renault about to take over, I don't think that's actually happening. I think they're all kind of working together now. I think there's group efforts. Car companies don't have a lot of money to throw around the place. Profits are down pretty much for the last couple of years. It's very hard to make money out selling cars. So I think there's a lot of group effort happening within the car companies, as everyone seems to be sharing everything these days. They all seem to be getting bits from every other car company to get things that work in their cars. I think BMW is the one that wants to bring it back in-house again. But when it comes to the electricity things, we should be doing instead. We should be working with people around us as well. We should be talking to our neighbours and going, well, do you know, have you priced up solar panels? Are you doing this? Do you think this will work for you? What's your bills? Who are you working with? Is there a way of getting cheaper electricity? You should be really talking to the local community, because there must be a way for great groups of people, because there is group like bonkers.ie is essentially a Groupon system. You know, it's buying in product to be able to sell for you reasonably priced. They get a discount, you get a discount. So essentially you could do that if you had 10 or 15 people in your area that would be like-minded when it comes to solar panels, and you could buy things cheaper. Hobbs says, the UK, I've heard of a group of residents got together and bought their electricity as a group, then had the electricity cheaper. That's what I'm thinking of. And I know for sure, I remember seeing a TV show about it, that there was a village in the UK who brought their own broadband. And I mean their own broadband. They didn't buy somebody else's broadband installed in their village. They built the whole network for themselves because no one else would do it. So they built it and they controlled their own broadband system within that village. They've set up their own telecommunications network essentially. So if that's possible, then I'm sure as God we can do something with solar panels in this country, because we need to take the emphasis off the electricity companies doing their thing if we're going to take charge of our own electricity. And I'm talking about solar panels in general. If we're going to harness the daylight sun, we need to be not just experts in the solar panels, we need to be experts in how the solar panel can benefit everybody in our area. Because it might be possible that during the summer, if you had very efficient solar panels and you had them nice and clean, that you could produce 110% of the energy you need, or 120. Now, instead of that going into the grid, if it went into a bigger battery bank and was used in the local area, then that's better, right? That's better again. It works out easier because everybody's getting the benefit of that. So if all of the houses were producing 110% in your area, instead of it all going back into the grid to get distributed, it goes back into your local grid, into your local batteries, and stored for overnight. And you can all see how much electricity you got left to use. And, you know, you're literally getting your whole neighbourhood off a grid in one go. And I think there has to be some sort of benefit to that. I'd love to see that happen here in Ireland. If anyone knows even a system like that is starting to happen right now, let me know. Or if you have an idea, I'd love to go and talk to people about what they're doing. Andrew says, we're looking at solar. We have an EV in use, 1600 kilowatts in 11 months on night rate, 160 quid for 12,000 kilometres. 160 quid is not a huge amount of money when you think about it. The investment, I think, the problem is the investment level of solar. So to actually buy the panels and the battery pack, which you're going to struggle to get a battery pack. I know I've been struggling to find a battery pack recently, because the last thing you want to do is install solar and then it's not really been used for anything. It's just, there's just panels up there that when you plug in your car, it charges your car, but it's not, you're not storing the excess. You know what I mean? So when the car is fully charged, the electricity just doesn't come in. It just gets turned off. So what you really want to do is harness that battery power into something that can hold it when you need it, then it's there. So the investment level for, like, I know the last time I priced a battery pack for your wall, it was about €5,000. It's probably more now, but it was about €5,000 at the time. And then solar panels is equivalent, around the same price again. So you're talking about 10 to maybe 15,000 installed. Now 160 quid a year isn't going to get you. 15 grand's a long way off. But if you were staying where you were, you'd obviously get that back in the price of selling the house and all. You know, there's other benefits to it. But it'd be nice to see something like that happen. In my humble opinion, BEV is not really a good justification for solar PV. Solar PV is about annual energy cost reduction. Won't charge a BEV in midwinter anyway. Apologies for third post. Sorry, post as often as you want. It's fine. That's the whole conversation of it. Yes, yeah. Well, it depends on your mileage. If your mileage was pretty high, maybe solar might at least help you towards charging your EV, or at least not paying for your EV to be charged. But if you're like us here, we try to be as efficient as we can. I'm a real old granddad type. I wander around the house at night to make sure everything's turned off and there's no switches on the wall that are turned on. There's nothing drawing electricity at night time, because if you have a phone charger, yeah, and you have it plugged into the wall, that's actually drawing a tiny little bit of electricity the whole time. Even when it's not actually plugged into anything, it's drawing down this little tiny fraction of a charge. So if you have, like we have here, 4 or 5 of them plugged in all over the house, because they're always plugged in, because the kids always want to charge their phone, the wife's always charging their phone, I'm always charging my phone. So they all draw a little tiny bit of electricity. So I'm really kind of weird about turning off everything, because I have a huge environmental edge to me that I don't really talk about, because I talk about cars a lot, which isn't very environmentally friendly. But we recycle. Every single packet we buy, we look at it and go, can you recycle this? Where's it go? Is it going to landfill? Is it gone paper? We will buy something that's even just slightly expensive because it's totally recyclable, because it's even better, compostable. If it's compostable, yes, we're into that. We'll buy that. But some things won't transfer over, and it's just kind of weird, like toothbrushes and things. We've tried the bamboo ones and they're useless. They just wear out straight away. They're useless. Automotive L3 just figured out what IMHO is. Internet speak 101. In my humble opinion, is what it actually means. Yes, my humble opinion. It's been around for a long time, that one, but it does pop up every once in a while. Like LOL is laughing out loud, ROFL is rolling on the floor laughing, all that kind of stuff. It's been around since the birth of the internet, really. Text speak brought it up. But in my humble opinion, it's been an older one. That's an older one, but it checks out. It's a bit like a Star Wars moment. More news from Twitter, because people have been tweeting me now this morning. Keith Young says he looks to replace his 2016 Skoda Superb, like for like, with a new one. And 2016, 43,000 euros. And a 2022 one is 54,000 euros with a less powerful engine. The price of cars is going up all the time. Every time we look out the window, the price of a car goes up. And we've been saying for ages, here on this channel particularly, we've been saying here for ages that the price of cars is really, really expensive at the moment. I mean, it's just going up. And every time there's a new car launch, it goes up by 1,500 euro, 3 grand. It goes up a little bit. And what they do is they cover it over by saying, well, you know, you're getting active cruise control, you're getting this thing, you're getting something else, you're getting a sunroof. They'll throw it in to say there's something in the car, but the car never goes back down, right? When it misses all those, like the first tranche of electric cars, we all said it was expensive. Every modern journalist went, oh, hang on a second, these cars are all like 50 grand, what's going on there? And every time we said that, and I remember particularly from Hyundai, who said straight away that, well, there's active cruise control, there's keyless entry, there's 18-inch alloys or something. You know, there's all these things listed out. But now you look at those electric cars, and most of that stuff is an optional extra, but the car is still the same price. You know, most of that stuff now has moved on. You have to spend a bit more money to get the top spec one, to get the active cruise control, to get the 21-inch alloys, or get the sunroofs, or get the... They go up to the top one. They're the ones that are 56, 57, 58 grand. The 50 grand car doesn't come in any of that anymore. But it's still 50 grand. The prices of the car are not going down. And that's the scary bit for everybody. You should really pay attention to that kind of thing, because right now, where's the 10 grand cheap car gone? Where's the 25 grand 5-door family hatchback that was out there all the time? There was like the bread and butter. That was the Volkswagen Golf, the Seat Leon. They were all around that 20 to 25 grand mark. And I'm talking about a good spec, top spec car with cruise control and electric windows and all that stuff. But these days, those cars aren't there anymore. The most reasonably priced car in the market at the moment, I think, is the Dacia Sandero, and that is 17,000 euros. And that's pretty basic. No, still, it's an alright car. It's fine. It's a car. It's not a great car, but it's a car. And if you were looking at a car you're coming out of a 10-year-old car, 15-year-old car, and you get into a Dacia Sandero, you go, well, that's all right. And it's actually our Irish car of the year, or one of the winners of the categories that year. So it is actually one of those cars of the year. So it is a good car. There's an LPG version of it. There's no electric version of it. But if you had to spend 17 grand, and then you spend another 3 or 4 grand and putting a few bits on it, so you're up at a 20 grand car. That's entry level now. 20 grand. It's going to be a scary few years for young drivers. Steve Ossie says, this is a great break from COVID, shy talk. Cheers, everybody. We have been pretty much a COVID-free zone forever. We never really went into the big COVID stuff other than complain about it, because it was a massive topic of conversation, obviously. But it's ending. It's going away now. The government have lost interest in it, really. So if you get it now, they don't want to know anyway. And the masks are gone from the 28th of this month, even better. Bob, have you test driven the EQA? I have, I think. EQA. I find Mercedes names very hard. EQ, I get it. That's the EQ range, so it's electric. I get that. But there's EQA and there's EQC and and it's very hard to remember which one is the EQA. But I think I have driven EQA. They need to make it lighter. They didn't mean to make it... Mercedes are fascinated with the way things drive, how it feels on the road. And that's brilliant, because a lot of the electric cars, at the beginning of electric cars, had terrible driving dynamics. Terrible. It just felt weird. It felt bouncy. They felt strange with the weight off on the bottom of them. They didn't handle very well. There's very strange tyres on them, which made them understeer a lot. Some of them are front wheel drive, some of them are rear wheel drive. It's only in the last kind of 4 years now, 5 years, we started getting cars that handle like cars, that actually go well. Once you get over the initial sort of torque thing that Tesla has, or when they started off, once you get over that kind of straight line speed and you actually turn into a corner, you realise the car doesn't handle very well. But Mercedes have always been pretty good about that sort of stuff. But EQA was a good one in. But if that's the small SUV I'm thinking of, it's kind of weird. I still find them a little bit strange. I still think we're overlooking estates and hatchbacks and stuff. Everything seems to be going this SUV route. They're getting rid of all the cars even look like hatchbacks these days. And yet the hatchbacks are better value. Estates are much better value. You know, but they're still get rid of them. I'm buying a new VW Allspace and VRT on the 2020 around 8,000 euros. On a new one, it's over 15,000. How do we deal with this? How do we even make Minister Ryan and the Department of Finance understand that this is too expensive. That it's way too much money. The amount of money we are spending to just put a license plate on the front of the car, it's not even an actual environmental tax or none of those things. It is just a license plate on the front of your car, and it's based on the open market selling price of the car in this country. That's it. That's why when someone brings in a Toyota Chaser, which was never on sale in this country, the VRT company goes, oh, I don't know, it was 20 grand. It's like, what? It's crazy. Like, Rob says, what is Dacia build quality like? As bad as some make out? No, I don't think so. Dacia have been plugging away and making decent enough cars for years. They're a little bit tinnier and a little bit more plastic than some of the other brands out there. But reliability, they seem to be pretty good. Most of the stuff is ex-Renault stuff. So what they do is they take a Clio from 2 generations ago or a generation ago, and they strip out the chassis and the gearboxes and the engines and the whole lot, and they put it all into a Dacia Sandero. That's exactly what happens, and they just make a different exterior. I saw a TikTok yesterday of a guy fixing doors in a factory. So you know when a door shuts and it makes a thud, right? That's fixed by bending the door into the shape. And I've seen guys do it. You see panel beaters do it all the time. Right? The door doesn't properly close at the top, and they bend it to make it fit. Anyway, somebody videoed a guy doing this in the Dacia factory, and they're all going, if only Teslas were built like that. I just found it funny they weren't slagging the guy off for bending the doors around. But he making the doors fit at the top, so it all fitted together nicely by just using his knees and kind of bending the metal and stuff. Very clever. But Dacia or whatever you want to call them, they make good, honest cars. They're just normal. They're designed to get you to and from work. The new Duster, very stylish, looks very, very good. I think it's lovely. Rugged looking thing. And their 4-wheel drive system is real old fashioned stuff. It'll go anywhere. As a kind of side note to that, the Suzuki Jimny also has a 4-wheel drive system. Really old fashioned, will definitely go anywhere. I have a video coming out of that. I drove it in the snow a few weeks back. New video coming out like that. But Dacia is very affordable. And that's where they compete. That's the only place. They don't want to compete in the quality. That's what Renault do. They don't want to compete in the top end of the market, but they do compete with themselves, kind of. Always a positive conversation about people to get the dark stuff for the news channels. News channels are meant to infuriate you. And if you, please, I do this every once in a while, I talk about your mental health. If at any point you look at something on the television and it's like news, or you flick over and you're watching RTE or you're watching Virgin Media or something, and it infuriates your head, take 2 days off. That's my advice to you straight away. Just stop watching news or anything to do with news for 2 days. Especially get off Twitter, which is very newsy organization, and just lose your brain for a bit. Go draw, go sketch something, go for a walk, go for a run. If you're in a gym, go to the gym and get up on a treadmill and do it for 30 minutes. Just sit there, put a podcast in, big headphones, podcast, and just stand there and just do where you're walking. Because people are caught up in the news, in the frustration. And news is designed to infuriate. It is designed in a way to make you click, think, talk, share. That's what it's for. And the more it pays attention, the more pokes you with a stick, is the worse it's going to be on you. So from a mental health perspective, news can be very, very dark for you. So just get away from it for a while. Try to take 2 days off the thing and don't come back to it. That's just a little message for mental health out there. Because I know a lot of you come here just for the chat and the shite talking. This is great. The Full Irish Gary says, afternoon from Tala. Any idea what a new Lada 4x4 will be coming to? I'm not sure Lada's actually going to deliver here. It very much depends on what Putin does. Over in the Ukraine, we may never see Lada come to the country. But Lada has been, if you look at the Lada website now, it's actually got not bad looking cars. I don't know what they feel like to sit in them, because they used to be absolute disaster zones the way they felt. But they actually look okay these days. They're not too bad. So I don't know when it's actually going to come here, but everybody's looking for cheaper yokes now as well. Nevo is coming here as well, another electric car company. They look like they're going to be reasonably priced, but who knows how much these things are actually going to cost. Automobile 3 says, panel beating. Does anyone else remember the Peugeot 206 advert where the guy in India makes one Hindustan ambassador? I do, yeah, he makes a 206 out of that. He taps away at his little hammer and turns it into a thing. Still a thing, panel beating's still out there, but it's just not as it used to be everywhere. You can pick anything. And you could fix it with a hammer, but these days you wouldn't do much with a hammer these days, bar break the plastic. So almost everything is plastic or some sort of reformed metal thing that you can't really fix. It's all replaceable now. I was talking to a guy the other day who was he was talking about, was it Volvo? I think it was Volvo he was talking about. And he hit a little pillar, so a pillar that couldn't be seen over the top of the bonnet, and he smacked it, and he kind of bent in the front and broke the front splitter and broke the radiator, not the radiator itself, but the plastic bit or the front where the radiator would be, the air intake area, and he bent the bonnet a little bit. €2,750 is what that cost to fix. It's not bad, but he had to replace most of it. Like the bonnet had to be replaced, not fixed. And the front grille and all had to be replaced. So nothing really fixes anymore. Graham Collins says, South Parker Love, he said Jimny. Oh, Jimny. Jimny is the best car in the world. I'm sorry. Every other car manufacturer, just forget about it. Suzuki have it done. If only they'd produce enough of them, because they're just stuck with the CO2 emissions, because it only comes in petrol. That's it. It comes in a little petrol engine. It's a fizzy little thing. Gorgeous to drive. Just I looked forward to going. It's one of the very few cars where you look outside the door and go, why aren't I driving that? Like, well, I want to go out in that car. It's just constant. Wherever you go, it's right there. It's a really good car. Rob Jarvis says the wife bought a 2014 Skoda Citigo. Good car, that. For €4,100 7 months ago. And they are done deal now for approximately $6,000. Great little car. Simple analog car, these digital times. I love those little VW Up, Skoda Citigo, Say It Me. Those three cars, when they came out, they were great. Different levels, slightly different price on each one, but a Citigo in its top spec home is called Monte Carlo, and they're gorgeous little cars, really nice. 1 litre 3-cylinder engine, 100% reliable, nothing much in to go wrong in the first place, so I wouldn't be worried about the reliability. Is that E3 long range a good all rounder? Yeah, well, debatable whether you need a long range one or just an ordinary one, and the same for Tesla. I remember Tesla saying the same thing to me. About whether, most people would buy a Tesla long range when actually they'd just be fine with a standard one. It's not really that much different in its range. But whether you want to spend the extra money and get the ID3 long range or not, I find the Volkswagen software is still a little bit finicky and still a little bit kind of hard to use. I still think I know Tesla's a bit more expensive, but Tesla has it nailed on the software end and stuff. They just do such a bloody good job on making software work. But it's when it comes to Volkswagen, they're very good at the range still, and the car feels like a good car. But this bloody infotainment system looks like something out of Google, like a cheapy sort of Google thing. Still a good car though, but good all rounder, yeah, for sure. ID4 is a little bit better of an all rounder. It's a bigger car. I had a Lada 30 years ago, so Roddy. I had arms and legs at the Hulk after 2 weeks. No power steering, nothing. I can remember the Lada. What was that Lada called that I had here? It was great big. It was a Fiat 124, I think. And it made all the panels out of steel and took out the power steering pump. And it was just a very basic, like totally basic car. But it sold well here in Ireland when it's kept up in one piece, like with the rust hanging out and stuff. Bob, enjoying this on the service? No problem. May I extend my confibularities to you? Shows so frantically engaging in a sort of gyro-commodious way. All the best. Miss limited slip diffs and the egg box milk floats. You will miss the limited slip differentials. You will miss all them things, but most people coming up now don't ever remember them. A lot less people around these days who actually know what they're talking about when it comes to cars. Most people who are getting into the car scene are kind of starting with electric cars. And if you start there, you'll never know what the feeling of, performance cars will be. Belarus tractors, does anyone remember those Russian imports? We had a dealer down here who sold a rake of them. There was a load of, I remember back in the 80s, there was an absolute stack of brands of things that were coming into the country as everyone wanted something cheaper, something quicker. And I remember like Fiat Ritmos, which used to fall apart constantly because they were useless. They were built up in Dublin. Ladas came into the country as well. I still can't remember the name of the Lada that came into the country, just the name on it. There was a few other brands that came in as well, like Hillman was still here at that time as well. Lamborghini tractors were here all along. There's loads of stuff like that. The Enyaq is a much better than 94. I have one all along. Enyaq actually looks nicer than 94. My two favourite electric cars in the market currently are the Enyaq and the EV6. Just because visually they look fantastic, and they just seem to do what they were supposed to do. They feel good. And Enyaq is like very hard to get, but they're there. They're a really good car. And EV6 is just That's actually Irish car of the year. Kia EV6. I may well trade my 2010 Qashqai in with 116,000 kilometres on the clock for a Duster. Spent a lot of front suspension and I've been told the rear is rusting badly. Qashqai and Duster are essentially the same car. You're going to buy the Duster is just better put together now compared to a 2010 Qashqai. So if you're coming out of a 2010, you're coming out of an 11-year-old, 12-year-old car, you're getting into a brand new, say, a Duster, it'll feel like $1 million. You get a touch screen, you get USB ports, you get, all the usual kind of stuff. And if you go for the 4x4 one, you get a little 4x4 system in it as well, which is quite nice. City Go on cars on today for $7,950. Good Lord! The Lada Niva, that's the one. Went on to be the Savara, the Lada Niva. I remember that car. Big, like designed with a ruler. There was no everything was. It was like it was like a child's drawing of a car. You know what I mean? If you were to sit down and draw a car, you draw 2 circles and you draw this kind of a rectangular thing around it, and that was a Lada Niva, which was based on a Fiat 124. Fiat 124 made hundreds of other cars across Eastern Europe, but we started to get them as well, and I still remember them. But there's none. I've never seen one on the road since. I've never seen one that's native to here, because this isn't. Ireland is a natural, and so is most of the parts of the UK until you get down really down the south. It's a kind of a damp place. It's if it's not properly sealed here, it's definitely going to rust. The new MG EV, I think, is the best all-rounder price now range. With the main brands be worried? No, the main brands won't be worried about the competition. Really, there is a certain amount of sales per year, and you can conquest some of those sales, so you can pull sales. But MG will be pulling sales from like Renault or Dacia or that kind of. They'll be in that zone there where that part of the market is. If you were going to buy a Volkswagen ID3 or ID4, you probably weren't even going to look at an MG. It's just not your kind of. It'll be a different brand. You don't want to go in there. Some people won't care. Some people just buy what they think is the right thing. It looks, the MG ZE or ZS looks like a Nissan Qashqai. So it's going to be popular for that reason. Lada Riva, yeah, based on the Fiat 124, there's all coming up now. I think I prefer the Fiat 124, I did too. The Niva had indicators above the headlamps, which Citroen copied for the C4. I'm not surprised. Did you ever use the indicators? Ka-chunk, big handle on this side. Ka-chunk, ka-chunk. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. Lada Riva, still popular in Russia. The Riva and the Niva and all the rest were still popular. They're still popular. They're still being made. Lada still has a website and it's still working perfect. I'll see if I can find it. Lada. I think it's Lada.ru. Lada Russia, is it? This might take a while. Maybe they'll cut the line between us and Russia. No, they haven't. We're all right. Even have it translated. Hold on, here we go. Look at that. Would you be this? Does that not look like a Toyota now? Seriously, go back there for a minute. Look at that yoke. That looks like an old RAV4. But it's not bad looking. I mean, it's not the worst thing I've ever seen. I'd say that's pretty cheap. I don't know what that says on the screen there. There's another one. Look at that. Oh, man. Wouldn't you buy that? I'd love that. A new Lada Niva. A Bronto. That's deadly. Lada Vesta. That looks like a Dacia of some sort. There's the saloon version now with a multimedia system. Come on, this is Lada. This is looking well here. Lada, you should come to Ireland. Come on over and bring your Russian cars with you. Let's go back to that. Lada Niva Bronto. That looks good, doesn't it? How do you get to the thing? More. It must be this one. Built to survive. Would it survive a nuclear war? From, I can't say, I don't know what that is. That's Russians' money. Look at that. Come on. You love that. That looks deadly. I would drive that. I would be very happy driving that, in fairness to it. Now I have to say, that Lada looks deadly. The Niva. Brilliant looking car. Back in here. That's a deadly looking car. So you see, Lada, that's what they're probably doing. That's what we're talking about. There was a yellow Lada even a Terranure car show a couple of years ago. The guy imported himself from Moldova. Nice chap. Yeah, there's a few. Apologies on the front grill. The end jack doesn't blow my skirt up. ID4 better looker in my humble. No, wait now. I don't know when I have to. What's IYHM? That's a new one on me now. Doing overtime today. Yes, I am. I just went a little bit over there today. I was surprised it actually last that long. Thank you again for joining me today. It has been the good 2 hours. 2 hours and 5 minutes there or so. And we were after talking to up to 500 people today, which is very nice. It's brilliant to have you aboard. It's nice actually to spend a bit of time with everybody's question one by one rather than kind of the wall of questions that you got on the older channel. Although I do want to grow this channel, this is not monetized, this channel, at all. YouTube don't work that way. Every channel is monetized on its own. Doesn't matter how long you've been on YouTube, you're not getting any money. No matter how many channels you make, you're going to get money from the channels you want, that you got yourself. So it is monetized, unsponsored. If you're interested in sponsors, or you're interested in doing something with the channel, get in touch with me, bobflav@thenextgear.com, or just find me on the social media. Probably easier. Good God, I get a lot of DMs these days just on Instagram and stuff, business ones. But thank you for joining in today. It's been absolutely brilliant to have you here. I really enjoyed today's show because it was a lovely little relaxed vibe to the whole thing as we wandered from topic to topic. It will, of course, remain on this channel. On the other channel, in the next couple of days, we'll have the new BMW coming out. I'm going over to France to have a look at the new DS9. I'm also going to a very exclusive thing in a little while from... we're going over to Mazda, are doing a thing, and then Citroen are doing a thing as well. Mazda's coming up with another one, and we're going to have a very exclusive behind the scenes look at a brand new car coming out of that company very soon, so that'd be worth looking at. But thanks for all the chat today. It's been absolutely brilliant. Look after yourselves, and until the next time, I will see you on the far side.